Welcome, everybody, to a podcast with two people who have the same number of NFL coaching jobs as Nate Hackett. It's the Sports Cliches podcast. I'm Craig. That's Jay. Jay, how you doing this week, my man?
Been pretty good. Holiday week, holidays keeping us busy. So we've missed a couple weeks in the NFL. A couple things have been switching up on us. Quite interesting landscape we're at now. A couple injuries that have happened that have shaken some things up. But yeah, I'm doing pretty well. Luckily, I've been able to duck and dodge the illnesses and stuff going around. So been pretty good.
I did not get so lucky.
Yes, yeah, I know. Unfortunately, yeah, Craig got dinged up a little bit himself. Yeah, so, but I don't know. I'd say, I think right now, if I'm putting my, the Homer hat on, I'm pretty damn happy with, everything that's going on, at least as far as my football team's doing. Unfortunately, your boy's not so much.
Yeah, officially eliminated.
Yeah. It's it was going to be a tough year. It's, NFC South was really kind of hoping that they would probably be the team to get there, but yeah, unfortunate in that regard. Let's see. It's been a little bit, but we had some games last week. We had some games over the holidays. I suppose we could hit on real quick for that. I think we know what game I will be probably bringing up here. So, I don't know. Do you have anything you want to dive into early on here?
Yeah, I brought him up. Let's talk about the game that got Nate Hackett fired. Let's talk about Broncos Rams.
Yes.
What a shit show that place is. I'll start with we'll start positive. Start positive. It's the holiday season. Fuck, Baker Mayfield looks good with a competent coach giving him play calls.
Yeah. Certainly, I think the thing that will always be forgotten with Baker in that regard is that the dude was throwing on like a third of an arm last year. He was completely busted up. Honestly, the fact that he was even out there playing for them is kind of, what are you doing? Like, put a backup and you got somebody like, no, you're going to get this guy killed out there, basically. Ruined his value, honestly. And, as much as he's, there's times where he's a little, off-putting or something like that, as far as like how he's been portrayed, not even necessarily by the media, but like the commercials, that sort of thing. People, more or less kind of love to dislike the guy in some regards, anyways. Due to shown, I mean, he's a gamer. He's and it hasn't always produced good results, but if there's one thing, it seems like he definitely, he's fired up. He brings good energy to it, and guy's always trying to win, it seems, even though it might not always be effective. And then on the other side, we have a guy that's saying that he's trying to win, but I don't know. It's interesting. I like the fact that there are guys like Jerry Jeudy that have stepped up and kind of spoken up for Wilson. We haven't maybe gotten so much of that. We hear some of the former players of, Russ when he was back at Seattle and that, not necessarily, speaking, up about him. Definitely, some not great remarks in that. But yeah, it's quite crazy to see these two teams right now. Given the position, they both have bad years, but Rams might actually have a future quarterback here, and the Broncos gotta be like thinking, man, this got to turn around next year, or we gotta get out of this somehow, some way.
I'll be honest with you. I don't think Baker's with the Rams next year.
Really? Wow.
I think there's going to be a team out there, New England, who maybe takes a shot at rehabilitating Baker.
Huh. Okay. I mean, he'll be a free agent, so it's with whoever. I don't know. This would be interesting. I mean, like, a lot of it, I think for plenty of guys and for good reason, it's going to be about, what's going to give you the best contract. Am I getting a multi-year, some guaranteed money sort of contract out of it? Am I getting a 1-year flyer? Can't fault the guy for doing that if that's the
Yep.
case, but it'll be interesting to see what kind of offers he gets, because right now I feel like, yeah, he's starting to step back into the conversation for a guy that was kind of benched and had this really a rough go of it. It seems like yeah, might be emerging out of it somehow, some way. Out of the Panthers, which is a team that needs a goddamn quarterback, and yet they didn't find the use for Mayfield. It's interesting to see that he landed on his feet. But as you said, coaching makes a world difference when it comes to play calling. Obviously,
Yeah.
there's someone calling the plays in this, and yeah, that might speak to it. Then again, all of a sudden, Carolina's looking a lot better out of
Yeah.
nowhere,
Yeah.
right? But they got rid of their coach
Yeah.
weeks ago,
Yeah.
so yeah.
It is easy to forget with Baker. 16,000 career passing yards, 102 touchdowns, only 63 interceptions in those 102 touchdowns. He has been a very good quarterback in the NFL at times. In Cleveland, I think we have now seen there was more issues in Cleveland than just Baker's injury, just the quarterback. Cleveland was kind of starting to fall apart last season, and they've completely bottomed out this year to the point where like Jacoby Brissett was actually playing some decent games and they still couldn't even come close. And then you go to Carolina, who again, yeah, Carolina's starting to throw a couple wins together. A lot of that is in spite of quarterback play, not necessarily because of it, right?
Right.
I think Baker's been in some unfortunate positions. Goes to the Rams, place where you have some talent there, despite the myriad of injuries. You still got guys like Higbee. You still got guys like Cam Akers, who's trying to play for a contract next year, right? You got guys like Van Jefferson, decent receivers, decent players around you, right? He looks like a guy again.
Right.
The thing that scares me about the Broncos right now, Russell Wilson looks awful. He finally, by the way, with his touchdown against the Rams, he has finally put up as many touchdowns this year as he has bathrooms in his house. For those of you who have been keeping track.
Yeah. He'll put a football in each one.
He'll put one football in each one. The scary thing for the Broncos now is that defense has gone to shit. And it was the thing, right? They had this all-world defense where if they could just get a little bit of offense to go with it, they'd be a great team. It's just completely falling apart.
This would be a 10-win team if they could somehow put up 20 points in a game,
Yep.
Like many times over. They lost a lot of games where the other team was only putting up points in the teens.
Yeah. But you look in
now,
recent memory.
Bad.
You look in recent memory, the Panthers were able to move the ball at will on them. The Chiefs were able to move the ball at will on them. Now the Chiefs doing that isn't a huge surprise. They'll do that to most teams. But then 51 points against Baker and the Rams. You'll let Cam Akers score 3 touchdowns. Right? Yeah. Like, there's if that defense has been broken beyond rehabilitation, this is a problem. Because then you got nothing. Because then you have nothing.
Yeah, and it's a pretty bad situation now at this point. It feels like the Broncos really, for good reason. I mean, I nobody saw this fall off coming from Russell Wilson. Nobody. I'm not necessarily a hater of Russell Wilson, but the guy was kicking our ass for years, so it was like I don't know. I wanted to, it's like, all right, he's wearing down a little bit. He's not able to necessarily run the same style of offense. A big element of his game has always been, I have the ability to get out of the pocket and I can punish you in a multitude of ways. It doesn't need to be anything, I think, too crazy. So that's the amazing fall off here, is that I feel like it wouldn't be that hard to really just kind of build up a little bit of offense around this guy, especially when you've put so much into him as far as your draft capital, as far as money is concerned, how much he's eating up of your cap room here. It would make some sense to start to maul an offense that utilizes his tools. This is who you got. You can't change that. And so, yeah, the fact that he's even been dialed back even more so as far as his ability to get out of the pocket, be dangerous as it's been. Um, it's it's surprising that I figured I was really surprised. I mean, you called it. You called it from really like week 4, as far as Nate Hackett need to get the fuck out of town. Like, not maybe week 4. Maybe that's a little early. But you were on that
The
train,
Raiders
and
game.
we straight out. I asked you. I was like, "Do you think he makes it through a full season?" You're like, "Hell no," and I was like, "You give it a season, and then you just move on." The season's already done for this point. So like I'm just wondering what you're I feel like you're not getting anything out of these next 2 weeks unless you had somebody guaranteed waiting in the wings as far as on your staff. And I can't think of who they've now handed off the interim duties to. Um but yeah, that's the only reason I see to get rid of him at this point. I think you just ride out the rest of the year. I don't know what the hell they plan on doing with these last 2 weeks as far as Denver is concerned. It's gonna be some. It's been some incredibly ugly football. It's just gonna be uglier football as we go on with them. And then on the other side, the Rams are trying to salvage something, and I think they have. I think they've salvaged 2 things. And you brought up the name before. I think the dynamic that this team has had with a guy like Cam Akers was fascinating. This is a guy. Usually, I believe he was the one who really came out and said he needed to get the hell out of there, more or less.
Yeah,
Sometimes that stuff gets blown up by the media, and it's like, yeah. I also wonder if this was a little bit of what I felt that Debo did this last offseason, is put out there to the media, say publicly that you maybe have this disagreement, irreconcilable, I need to get the hell out of there
yeah.
sort of thing. But really, this is, perhaps, leveraging, perhaps this is just trying to, just throw the scent off the trail sort of thing. Because it seems like now that obviously they've made moves as they have and gotten rid of Henderson as his main competition, it seems like they maybe have repaired that. And yeah, I think you want to get a guy like Cam Akers. He's shown that he has some talent when you're able to put him in and you have a decent enough offensive line. And I think the Rams have finally gotten a little bit to that. They've gotten a little bit healthier on that offensive line. So you got a little something to look forward to. The Rams are going to, I think, they'll bounce back. They won't be anything, obviously, I think, toward the Super Bowl teams that we had of them. But yeah, you got to take into account they lost Cup. Stafford was getting the shit beat out of them. They had no offensive line, and they had this disgruntled running back room that I think they've maybe mended that, and they should be, I would say, a better team. Definitely a contender for second best in the NFC West next year for sure.
I think it's easy to forget with Cam Akers that this is a guy who in Florida State broke every rushing record Florida State had. And those records were held by Dalvin Cook, right? Florida State's always been a school that produces great running backs, and Cam Akers was the guy who shattered all of their records, just obliterated them. He has, there's a reason he was, I think, the second running back drafted in that class, early second round. There's a reason he was, right? Like, he is very talented. For one reason or another, there's been a disconnect with LA. Obviously, they had Henderson there, and they tried to split back them a little bit, and I don't think that really suited Cam, and there's a lot of frustration there. If you can build that bridge, you still got a couple more years on Cam Akers' rookie contract. If you can get him moving, that could be a really big starting piece for, rebuilding you back to serious contention. You obviously have Cooper Kupp, right, who is top 3 wide receiver in the game when healthy, and that might be being generous. You're gonna have Stafford back next year. How much does Stafford have left? Who knows? But you know, it's probably at least as good as what you have at quarterback now. There's pieces there. That defense still has pieces there. It's hard to say where the Rams will truly be next year because obviously they've been injured to hell and back. But I think we're starting to see little glimpses of like, maybe this Rams team's not dead yet.
Yeah, I mean, I think it will be a better year for them next year if they could, avoid the injury bug again.
Yeah.
I think, teams kind of get dinged for that all the time, and it happens. Players get injured. I've been watching Niners teams that have had, you're talking 6, 7, 8 starters.
Yeah.
And perhaps like 6 of those are one side of the ball sort of thing. When you're getting that beat up and you're having to go on the backup guys, it's nice that you could have guys next man up, that sort of thing. But really, you really only want to have to do that with a couple positions. You could fill that in. But when you're getting dinged all over the place, you're really putting out a different team there. And yeah, I think a lot of folks, maybe will forget that the Rams were as beat up as they were this year. Really at one point, your only offense is really coming from Cooper Kupp, and then you lose him for the entire year. It will be a better year for them next year. I think easily a team that could, they'll be above 500. They'll be right there for. I feel like if all things considered, things keep trending this way for the Niners, you can't not put them as the top one.
They're the team to beat in that division.
But absolutely, Rams and Seahawks have made this a very, very interesting division where I feel like the fall off for the Seahawks could have been, so I felt it was going to be, they're going to be a 2-win, 3-win team potentially, but they've surprised the shit out of us. So it makes it a very interesting division. Very interesting.
The Seahawks are likely going to have a top 3 pick in this draft this year.
Yep.
Given how good of a season they've had, all things considered, they're going to be picking top 3 in this draft. That is like the piece of business they've done. Also, by the way, we're talking about how desperately bad Denver looks. They got Denver's first round pick next year and the year after.
Yeah.
This might be the steal of all steals for the Seahawks if this keeps going the way it is in Denver right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because the Seahawks right now are either looking at, you could go after Will Levis or CJ Stroud if you really like them. There's going to be guys like Will Anderson, Miles Murphy around if you want to get like an elite edge rusher near the top of the draft. You're going to be looking at guys like Peter Skoranek if you want to add the best offensive lineman in the draft. They're going to have their pick of the litter for what they want to do. That's a scary proposition for a team that is going to finish close to 500 this year, maybe a game below or a game above, but they're going to be there, right? So they were a decent team. They were in contention for a while until falling off near the end of the year. And Denver's like, here's more elite talent.
Yeah, they're going to be set. For a, and yeah, that was going to be thought of, all right, they're going to get that pick, but all things considered, it was supposed to be, Denver's going
mid to late first
exactly
round, right?
Like this could have been
best
the
case
projection
scenario
for this.
The Seahawks is that was going to be like 17 to 20.
Yeah, exactly. Like this is going to
be number 3 at the moment.
This is a team really competing out there in the AFC West, trying to knock off the Chiefs. And now we got this game coming up next week that, oh my God.
Still technically could be first overall pick if the Texans win out.
Yes. Yeah, and that's some interesting scenarios toward how the drafts are ultimately going to work out. Because, we got a couple teams that are all of a sudden in that mix because of traded away picks.
Yep. Let's talk about Big Cock Brock, shall we?
Yeah, let's hit on one other game. This is a fun one. Family for my family, our big day is Christmas Eve as far as getting together. Christmas morning obviously has its own thing. We have a little bit
Yeah.
of a brunch, that sort of thing. But Christmas Eve is when everybody gets together, celebrate it, that sort of thing. So having this game on Christmas Eve, wonderful. Absolutely, this is fantastic. Right in the middle of the afternoon too. It's like right before dinner and everything.
Yeah.
We're getting our drinks on. Um, we're having a good time over at my. This is hanging out at my parents and my brother-in-law sister's place. But as we're watching this, it was interesting game. There was letting the Commanders hang around a little too much for sure. This 37-20, it doesn't look anything close. And at times, it felt like the Niners were pretty dominant, but it didn't show up on the scoreboard for a little bit. I'll be the not overly optimistic Niners fan. This was a game that they should have probably been up 14-0 early, and it shouldn't have even been a question. Kind of let some things slip away. A little too soft in coverage, honestly. A little uncharacteristic. They have played back and not gotten beat deep, which is kind of, I guess, a characteristic of the Niners. But they gave up a couple long third downs early that kept drives alive. All of a sudden, Johan Dotson looking a lot better for the Commanders than I think we expected. A couple nice little routes and that sort of thing, and all of a sudden, the Washington stuck around for that first half, and if it wasn't for a real close goal line stop, they would have had the lead early on the Niners because of getting stopped themselves on a funky little. I don't know if you saw that USFL play,
Yeah.
the option. I don't know how much they practiced that, but yeah, it was just that's a funny play to run right there, and I feel like it's something I've brought up before, and I feel like is always going to be one of his best traits. Jimmy Garoppolo, you just run him on a quarterback sneak on 4th and 1. You get that shit every time. You don't fuck around with this cute little gadget like option play that the fullback's running all of a sudden. No. You just move the pile forward and you get that first down every time. Not willing to do that with Brock Purdy yet. I get it. He's a smaller guy. He can't do it quite like Jimmy G can as far as that. Noticeable difference, I'm just going to say. But no. But yeah, obviously let's get, as far as, as this game wore on, you've seen Kittle get worked back in the offense, which is, I think, kind of perfect timing, honestly. Everybody kind of forgot Kittle is actually a really good receiver at tight end as well. He's not just a badass blocker. And all of a sudden now he's gotten, 2 tutties a game is a sought out option as far as receiving on this team again. Definitely a quite a surprise to see there. A nice surprise. And then, yeah, you're able to make this offense still work when you have a Brandon Ayuk who's doing great at catching the ball for the most part. Jawan had an unfortunate interception, but he's been stepping up really well. Jawan Jennings has, and then you have the option to still be able to run the ball with a guy like Ray McLeod. Just the one play there, but it was kind of the nice little spark to this offense. Like, oh yeah, we could still do this. So yeah, going forward, you gotta love the position they're in. I think still this is a very interesting week coming up. Minnesota has a really interesting week, so the potential for the Niners to still sneak in for number 2 seed here is real. Something there, I think, no reason they shouldn't be trying for. And this upcoming week is going to be real spicy. Bosa feasted in this game pretty well. Just a little sample here, but might be another good week for Bosa coming up against the Raiders this weekend.
Yeah, I really like running Ray as that gadget wide receiver. As a punt returner, right? He's got speed, great upfield vision. As the wide receiver who can sling around and make a couple running plays every now and again, I think he fits that role really well. obviously just the one rush on the game, but 1 for 71 and a touchdown looks nice on the average. I love Brock Purdy. I fucking love Brock Purdy. I said it from the moment we talked about them drafting him. I thought that was a genius pickup.
Yeah.
The guy has no fear whatsoever. He doesn't give a shit that he was a 7th round draft pick this year and wasn't supposed to see NFL playing time this year. He goes out there and he throws the ball around. He's not scared to get the ball into the tight windows. He's got great accuracy on his throws. That was something he's always had. He's worked well on the mechanics to be able to get that ball out there a little bit quicker. Yeah. And he found a little something with George Kittle in this game. Yeah. Him and Kittle got a little connection going in this one.
It's hilarious, the Iowa State connection. And I think it was post game. I think the game before this one. There's a little shit talk there, of course. Why wouldn't there be? Fucking
Cyhawk battle.
Yeah, and the Cyclones have pretty much always gotten their ass kicked by Iowa, I believe, right?
In recent years, it's turned a little bit. In particular, under Brock Purdy, I think they went 2-1 against Iowa.
Yeah. But I mean, yeah, you're able to throw to a guy like, now you're throwing to the Kittle instead of he's on the opposite side blowing you up. Yeah, it's I think for Purdy too is you're just kind of, you're in a position to where you are going to be in an offense that is, if everything's working right, the guys behind you, just the play design itself is very straightforward. It's there's going to be some some quick outs, that sort of thing. The one interception he had was on, honestly, a beautifully placed ball to Jawan Jennings that he just blip and scoops it up and just puts it right to him.
That's not even fair.
Yeah, that was unfortunate. It was kind of a backbreaker early on because they were rolling. And god damn, like, it's one thing to be like, you could put it toward a guy, that sort of thing. Purdy has consistently been able to put balls on the numbers, putting balls away from defenders in certain spots. He'll even throw that ball behind a guy on purpose because the defender's going to be blowing up their receiver, so he gets them on the back. And sometimes the incompletion, it's a tough play, but it's the only play really there. Otherwise, you're getting your guy killed out there. He's, he doesn't necessarily have fear as far as, what's happening maybe immediately in the pocket. I think he has, he definitely feels pretty comfortable in that. He's willing to just step into a throw, even if it's collapsing a little bit. He had that really nice early throw where he didn't even really notice the tackle losing the edge rusher there, and still is able to just deliver that in without really worrying about it. Didn't tuck it. But then, there's something to be said about, hitting guys on the run so that they get the extra yardage, and throwing the tough routes, the tight window routes, into spots in which only your guy is going to be able to make the play on it. I think, again, we're talking about a rookie. It's not always going to be glamorous. He's probably, there's going to be a misread. There's going to be maybe a bad pick here or there. But I think in general, his style, his confidence in it, and on a very consistent basis, he places the ball in a very nice spot for his receivers. So that's all you could really ask for. I will say in this game, only thing I was a little worried about is that, not the most effective run. I think Washington showed why they were one of the top defenses coming into this game. They said, we're not going to let you necessarily beat us just by running the ball, and they shut down Christian McCaffrey pretty effectively. Outside of one drive, he had some nice ones, but yeah, otherwise it was very limited for him. And unfortunately, I hope it's not too bad, Jordan Mason not playing in this game, a little worrying for me, because I really liked him as your spell, especially your late game. It seemed like they really like to run him potentially in the second half a lot more than Christian McCaffrey. That's where your runs are going to come from. I like Tyrion Davis-Price getting touches there, but hopefully we get a healthy Jordan Mason going forward. Obviously, the big talk has been Deebo Samuel. Get him healthy and hopefully get him some reps before the playoffs start. I'm a little interested about how that's going to go for Mason, and hopefully we get a healthy one as we're getting into the playoffs here.
That is the thing, though, right? Like, losing Mason obviously sucks, but they do seem to have a bevy of running backs just ready to go. I completely forgot Tyrion Davis-Price was with the Niners.
Yeah.
I just completely forgot that.
That's a late pick.
Yeah, he was a legit guy at LSU. Like, had a pretty damn good career at LSU. So it's like, it's one of those things where it's like, okay, next man up. Who you got? Right? And Davis-Price can step in, take a few snaps, right? You got Mason. Obviously, Christian McCaffrey is going to be your bulk guy. But there's a lot of options there for them, right? And obviously, they going into next season. And I know talking about next season for a team that's going into the playoffs looks likely to make a bit of a run in the playoffs.
Right.
Seems weird. They got real decisions to make at that position. Because you spent a lot of draft capital on Trey Lance. A lot. Right? And now Brock Purdy comes in. No fear. Looks every bit an NFL starting quarterback. First player in NFL history to win his first 3 starts.
Yeah.
What do you do there?
I don't actually think it's that complicated. Right now, it's funny because, trust me, I'm on Niners Twitter. They're tearing their hair out about this shit. It's back and forth. I have people in the Madden Discord. They are, they hated the trade from the get, so like it's even more fuel to it, that sort of thing. This is what I feel. Right now, you have Brock Purdy and Trey Lance. You are getting them for pennies on the dollar.
Cheap.
You're getting them dirt cheap. Trey was, obviously a top pick, so a little bit more there. You are getting Brock Purdy at the cheapest possible draftable, amount that you can for a quarterback. You're going to get that for a while. A lot of teams spend a lot of money, like the Denver Broncos, on their quarterback. And if the situation doesn't work out, they're absolutely fucked. The Niners are not fucked, in a great position, and they have potentially 2 quarterbacks that they have for a very nice price going forward. Jimmy, mostly going to walk, right? I think he's shown again that he's a worthy starting quarterback in this league. A lot of teams need a quarterback in this league. I don't see any reason why he would be sticking around in what would be, again, a backup role. I think he kind of proved it already.
Maybe even a 3rd string role the way that they're looking right now.
You're looking really nice, honestly. Yeah. Brock Purdy, Trey Lance, and why the fuck not? You already brought him back in. Keep Josh Johnson on the fucking practice squad as the old vet, that sort of thing.
The vet who can kind of keep the young kids going in the right
direction. And a guy who's been around this team multiple times, granted, different, different front offices and shit, but this is a great situation to be in. And 100%. The thing is, Trey Lance, as much as you spent on him, you haven't been able to actually show what the guy can do. So the asking price can't even be that high for the guy. It's all dependent on where you drafted him. That's not gonna get you a return. So the guy needs to play. But do you play him over Brock Purdy? I don't think you can. A guy is winning for you right now. I don't care where you fucking drafted him. Do not make the mistake that the Patriots did not make. And, because we drafted Tom Brady in the 6th. Like, there's no reason. Yep. We have Drew Bledsoe. He's a legend. Like,
exactly.
No, don't you dare. There's no way they make that mistake. I don't think, unless injury or a streak of bad, inconsistent play happens for Brock Purdy. would that ever be considered? That being said, this is all, again, based on two guys that have played together in Brock Purdy and Trey Lance a total of, 6 started games in the NFL? You're riding on a pretty young, inexperienced, and you can't, as much as I've loved, what Brock Purdy has shown and how this team is looking, that sort of thing, it's still way too early to tell. And so the fact that you're still getting these guys on a pretty affordable contract, all the better. Because I don't think you fully know what you have. What you've seen so far out of Brock Purdy is fucking fantastic, and you hope that continues. But don't write people's careers after 4 games. Don't do it.
No, absolutely not.
It's bad for the Trey Lance situation that people have already decided that, and it's bad for the Brock Purdy situation that people have already decided. You got to...
Let me throw you out a hypothetical.
Sure.
Trey Lance Brock Purdy finishes out the season the way he's playing now.
Right.
Goes into the playoffs. Niners have a bit of a run. Doesn't matter where they finish, whether they, go all the way, stop a little bit short, however it works. They go on a bit of a run.
It could matter, depending on where that ends.
For my hypothetical, it doesn't matter.
Go for it.
A team like, say, Carolina comes in. Offers you to reimburse the draft picks you gave up for Trey Lance, yes or no? First and a third.
That the Panthers even have that real estate to give up?
I'm pretty sure they do. It was just an example team,
right?
Like a team that is looking for a quarterback. New England could be another example. Any team right now who's like, you likely need a quarterback, comes in, offers you that trade.
I mean, yeah, I don't see that ever being the offer. I just don't. Because now you've already drafted the kid and it's been, a season now, or it'll be a season 2, and you haven't been able to really get, real game film outside of preseason. You just have a handful of regular season games that you could really judge the kid on. I don't exactly see that as being realistic. If it was to happen, though, I think you'd have to really consider that if you're the Niners front office to get those picks back and be able to reinvest it in other positions on your team. Absolutely. You would.
I say that because I know full well the way NFL scouts looked at Trey Lance. And despite the fact that he has, by the way, literally of scoutable football, played 21 career games. Yeah. Right? Yeah. He played 17 in college and he's played 4 in the NFL. Despite that, I know there were the story that was out there was one scout who said he was better on film than Peyton Manning. If that is still a thing, if that image is still in people's heads, and Trey's not old, right? Trey,
no.
It's not like we're talking about a guy who's long past. He's 22.
He's 2 years younger than Brock, isn't he? Or a year and a half or something like that?
He's a year and a half younger than Brock Purdy.
He's the youngest.
There is plenty of time with this kid. No. A team who needs a quarterback desperately and still sees that film and still think this guy could be Peyton Manning. I could see a team throwing that out there.
Yeah, it's gotta be
being
like
San Francisco and going, listen, you've got a guy that you probably like now. He had a great season for you, didn't he? Right. You got this guy here who you still don't know about. I'm willing to reimburse you what you spent on him. 2 firsts and a third.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it would be a mistake not to. At this point, the situation is different.
Yeah,
when you drafted Trey Lance, it was with the thought that we need a quarterback for the future. Yeah. We can only ride Jimmy for so much longer. He's been injured himself, so therefore we need something, and we don't mind if it's a bit of a project because we got some time. We got a season that we're going to try to ride out of this. Little did we know injuries were going to shake out as they were, and that got stretched out. But now you have seemingly a guy, and I don't see any reason why you go away from that. And if he continues to prove that he is the guy, that sort of thing, and he was to make a playoff run and be successful in the playoffs, and wasn't necessarily the reason for like a complete collapse to where you don't win a game, that sort of thing, and when it matters the most,
Yeah.
championship, Super Bowl, whatever. No reason to go away from that. That's you stick with that, and
I agree.
now you have to honestly look at Trey for what he is at that point, which is he's your backup quarterback. And if you're getting that kind of real estate for a backup quarterback, you take it every time. Simple.
1 first and a third.
That year's first?
This year's first.
Depends on the team. If that gets you a really high spot up there, hey, with so much hype around the quarterbacks, there's going to be some great other position players out there for you in the high rounds here. Yeah, probably.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. I think I get Trey has had these flashes in the NFL of showing you some good stuff in very, very limited snaps. And the tape of him at North Dakota State is legendary stuff. It's still North Dakota State. He never had to play a team like Alabama. He never had to play a team like Ohio State or Georgia, one of these great defensive teams, right? There's still got to be a little bit of question mark. Like, how much do you get out of playing a team like Furman and throwing up? I think he threw up 6 touchdowns and no picks against Furman for like 485 yards. It's like, yeah, fantastic. Obviously, that's unbelievable. You still played Furman, right?
Mm-hmm.
In the NFL, he's had a couple of really nice looking passes. He also has had one very poor start out of his 2 against Chicago, right?
Yeah.
He's had 2 starts in the NFL, and one of them was really bad. I don't know if a team came at me with like a legitimate first round pick somewhere in the top 15 and a third, and I would have to look at that and go, I'm down a first round pick out of this trade, but I'm recouping something and I have a guy here who I really like. So it's no longer a case of I need him for the future. I have a guy here I like for the future.
Right.
Maybe recoup a little something out of that. I don't necessarily disagree. I think the 2 firsts and a third is not even a question. I think you have to take that and run right now.
Yeah, the thing is you're doing the one thing that you've been able to kind of avoid for at least the last couple years, is not only the question's always going to be at the starter level, but who's going to be that backup?
Yep.
Because history has shown time and time again that a backup quarterback is going to potentially come in at some point and have to play for your team.
I think they can keep Garoppolo around.
That's the only question, is that, it's like it is worked out so well. He is beloved by that locker room. Yep. He will not make the money, but he's not going to make that money anywhere right now, right?
I think the quarterback market that's out there right now is not as big as it was last year. There's too many good quarterbacks in this year's draft class. I think you look at what Mayfield's done in LA, that probably puts him ahead of Jimmy G on the free agent quarterback ladder. Heineke's a free agent at the end of this season. Everything that's going on in Washington, I think he could be an interesting choice for some teams as well.
Yeah.
Right. There's a few guys who are out there. I think there's less teams out there this year looking for quarterbacks.
Yeah, I mean,
as far as who can look for quarterbacks, rather. Obviously, Denver would love to get another big-time quarterback. They can't afford it. They're paying the one that they have like $40 million next year.
Yeah, I think it's the same thing for Mayfield that you'll have for Garoppolo, that you'd have for a lot of these, veteran, I feel good quarterbacks, but like are trying to find another spot to land. You want to go somewhere that you're going to be competitive, obviously. That's, I think, first and foremost. I think money's in there, but I think it's a multi-year deal. If you're able to get someone to at least put 2 years, 3 years behind you potentially as a quarterback, as a spot on that roster, that sort of thing. I think that's going to be a lot more. That's going to be a lot spicier of a deal. That's going to be a lot more intriguing and something that I think those guys would want to. They'd be more accepting to go to a team like that. I think over the 1 year, one and done. Still kind of a flyer. I think Baker a little less so because he just hadn't been there, but I think Jimmy's proved that at this point. Like,
Yeah.
I'm still a starting quarterback in this league and can still sling it. And yeah, you put it in a good situation. Won't you? It's not going to cost you. And I think that position still costs teams left and right. Um, this year has been historically bad for offenses, and
Yep.
I think it's at a premium that if you get somebody under center that is able to run your offense to an efficient manner, you won't have great games all the time, but hell, it's they're few and far between as far as we've brought up before, the real starting quarterbacks in this league.
Yeah.
You got about 20 of them maybe, and those guys that are close to the 20, it's like they have some off games for
Yeah.
sure.
Oh yeah.
So
Yeah, I asked about Trey Lance, by the way, because I think with Brock Purdy, this isn't really much of a question. If somebody comes in and offers you that, you take it and run. For a guy that you drafted in the last pick of the 7th round, that's just draft capital gain at that point, right? But I'm not sure teams would offer Brock Purdy the same way they'd offer Trey Lance, just because I still think there's so many teams out there that still see that video of him in college and go, he's Peyton Manning.
yeah.
He's Peyton Manning who can run.
Well, it'll be interesting to hear because I know we've heard like some whispers, but I just like down the line after he's finally fucking retired. We hear the stories, the massage parlor stories from Robert Kraft on what kind of deals he got for a young Tom Brady as he was winning, Super Bowls and playoff games, that sort of thing. What he could have flipped that for, because that's kind of you're talking when you're talking that low in the draft, that sort of thing. It's always interesting to see what that could be turned around for. I think the idea that you wouldn't get as good of offers potentially for Brock Purdy as you would Trey Lance, not out of the question. Like, I think it's hard for teams to look past that as far as like he was like nobody drafted him until the very end. And then you have the 3rd overall from the year prior. Like, yeah, it's gonna be hard for people to look past that no matter how much actual game tape and success that you've had out there on the field. So kind of interesting in that regard, yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting proposition for them, I think, going into next year, because they have a lot of options. And there is, I think, probably the best and most realistic option of you just keep them both, bring them into training camp. Whoever wins the starting job's the starter. You go from there.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, yeah, again, a pretty good position for the Niners to be in right now. That's your biggest problem potentially, is that we have a couple potential starter quarterbacks. What do we do? These are favorable positions for sure. And let me talk one more, and we'll talk about an unfavorable position here, and that's the position we find the Las Vegas Raiders in, who had they had a holiday game as well on Saturday.
Yep.
And that game sucked. That came after, and unfortunately, it was a slow bleed. We have a Raiders fan amongst our family, so he had to endure that one with the rest of us. And
boy.
Yeah, it was. Now we might have seen the last start from David Carr.
I don't think there's a might have about this.
Yes.
He's not even with the team anymore.
Exactly.
He's fucked off and left.
only say may because I don't know if they really like find themselves in an emergency quarterback situation. It's like, well, we have one guy still rostered that we're paying. You might have to bring him out there if like absolutely you have nobody left. Are you really like
Oh God.
this team's broke as shit? Are they trying to bring in another quarterback from free agency? But this, this will go more down to the only thing I wanted to bring up about this one. The idea that now you're going to be in a situation where, yeah, now Carr gone, Josh Jacobs probably gone, almost certainly, seems like. You got Devontae Adams, who really came only over because of Carr.
Are.
Now you got to try to get rid of Carr. You had just another completely banged up and more or less useless season out of guys like a Darren Waller. You brought on Chandler Jones, he hasn't done shit. Are like are they gonna be potentially right now the Raiders? Because they're gonna have to apparently stick around with McDaniels again. Because they can't fire him because that's gonna cost too much money.
Yeah, it'll cost them too much money.
Like, are you got to already be thinking about tanking next season? I feel like I just wonder, like, what can you do right now to salvage it? And it would be the one thing I guess you could do. And I saw some scenarios where this came up. It was on a Twitter feed. I thought it was kind of interesting. Is the idea that all right, like Carr's value is now like plummeted. Devontae Adams still had one of his best seasons ever. It's not like the team around Carr necessarily like helped out at all. He was bad at points, but like he had a pretty bad defense around him at points. He just didn't have a lot of help, it seemed, throughout the year. The potential that you would be able to package if Devontae Adams wants to play with Carr so much. Could you package them together? Adams and Carr, two certain teams, and be able to get a decent amount back as far as draft picks or perhaps another like quarterback wide receiver combo, that sort of thing. I think that's the only real way you could maybe salvage this for anything for you. But otherwise, it seems like a complete fucking bust for the Raiders, and they're going to be one of the worst teams easily next season. Basically, is the ultimate point I'm getting to. It's looking bad. It's looking even worse on the horizon. But I think there's something you can still do to hopefully help yourself out for the future. Because I think, I mean, you just now, you don't even have the all right quarterback, I feel like, that you had in Carr. And you got to get some for this. I don't know.
I don't think they can, right? He's out of contract at the end of the year. I don't think he's coming back. I don't know what Devontae Adams is going to be worth to a team right now.
I mean, he had a good season. Devontae Adams actually had a good season. Like, he's still clearly damn good wide receiver.
Yeah, no, that's true. Yeah, and I guess, like, he's pissed, right? He has not hid the fact that he's pissed about the fact that Carr's being benched. He literally came out in the media and said, he's the reason I came here. He has made it pretty clear he's not happy. And, like, the Raiders were like, we're going to let him feel how he feels. Because, they're coached by a bunch of fucking idiots. Instead of instead of, trying to pull everybody away from the grenade, they just threw everybody on top of it and watched it blow up. I don't think Devontae Adams stays next season. I can't believe that happens. If a team goes out and gets Derek Carr, especially a team who feels like they're maybe only a couple pieces away.
Yeah.
maybe an Atlanta Falcons team that could really use a quarterback and a top wide receiver. Uh, maybe.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, I see no reason why you don't see where Carr lands and then go to that team and go, want Devontae Adams? Because the answer is going to be yes. It'll just be how much are they willing to pay. The Raiders are going to suck next year. There's no way around that. Most of the talent on this team is leaving at the end of this year.
Yeah.
It's going to be Darren Waller and Hunter Renfrow begging for help. Josh Jacobs, you messed up on this one. You should have just taken that 5th-year option because he's fucking right the hell off out of here. And he's getting paid for it. Which is good, by the way, because they still don't know how to use Josh Jacobs. It drives me nuts. You're going to be losing Derek Carr. You look on the defense. Max Crosby, I think, is out of contract at the end of this year or next year. Like, he's nearly out of there. You're losing a lot of talent on this team, and you're still stuck with Josh McDaniels as your head coach. It's going to be bad. The light at the end of the tunnel is Caleb Williams is in the 2024 draft. And fucking hell does Caleb Williams look like a stud. So, I mean, there's your light at the end of the tunnel.
Tank City all ready for the 2023 season for the Raiders. They're looking to the future. Yeah. I mean,
for Caleb is beginning.
It'll be real easy for them to be the worst team in the West, it feels like. Just feels that way for the Raiders.
It might not be that hard for them to be the worst team in the NFL.
Yes. But, I mean, like, worst team in the West, so those are, like, easy losses, and then, I don't see it. Gotta agree. And, they're going to be having another fun year of we have to pay McDaniels. Are they going to be fine after next year? Is that the question? How long do they have to hold on to McDaniels for it to be all right for them to finally get rid of the
Next year's the last year on Gruden's contract.
Oh, okay. So, now
so Gruden's contract's gone, then you can fuck McDaniels off out of there and get somebody who can actually coach.
Amazing.
But, knowing the Raiders' history, they'll, I don't know, Mike McCarthy will probably be fired by that point. That's who they'll hire.
Oh, Big Mike. Nice. Hell yeah. All right. With that, anything else you want to talk about from last week that came to mind?
Nope. That was really about it. It was a pretty standard week, let's be honest. Oh, the Texans beating the Titans was kind of funny.
Oh, yeah. Brutal.
The Texans keeping their hopes alive of not getting the first overall pick by beating the Titans. It does guarantee that next week's game between Tennessee and Jacksonville will decide who wins the AFC South. So that's pretty cool.
True. And since we hit on that, we might as well continue it on. Tennessee obviously losing that game and losing last night's game. I was able, kind of keep an eye on this one, but obviously I think the story being Tennessee was in this game for way too long, considering they were starting Joshua Dobbs. Who literally came right off the flight and dressed and played quarterback for this team. And I don't even mind Joshua Dobbs, but that's a tough situation for anybody to be thrown in on a team that's already just not shown any kind of dynamic on offense to do anything other than be completely predictable. That's a tough situation to be thrown into because it's not like you could bring too much more of an element to it. But obviously, Dak starting off with a couple picks there, making this a bit of one for folks to sweat out as far as their fantasy teams, and for Dallas fans, obviously kind of sweating out a team that they should and they ultimately did just kind of put their foot down, and this game wasn't much of a game by the time the second half was rolling around. But I will say, this is a tough one as far as for Tennessee. Again, like you said, this AFC South, not really having who I felt was going to be your best team has now been your worst team in the Indianapolis Colts. Um, this is kind of more or less where I felt like Titans might fall in. It's a little worse than I thought it was going to be, but given that the Colts have played so bad, it's surprising. Yeah, losing to teams like Houston the week prior. Yeah, crazy to see this slip away. For how good this Tennessee was looking at one point, they have lost now. Let's see, as far as their record is concerned, because I think it's 6 in a
Seven and
row
nine
they've
now, 6 in a
lost.
row.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and wins before that coming against really bad Denver and Green Bay teams. Green Bay's come a little bit back, and we'll talk about them later. But Denver has obviously shown that. And then yeah, tough loss against Kansas City is kind of how this all started. It's kind of harsh to look at that. Um, a little bit of when they started to fade away really was kind of right there. Was that loss to KC, and just has not come back for him. Obviously, as much as we don't really rate Tannehill that high, the fall off that has happened for this offense is even more dramatic now that you're having to bring in your Malik Wilsons and then ultimately your Josh Dobbs, and yeah, it's a shit show. Unfortunate for Tennessee. They should have been your playoff representative. It felt like out of the South, and now we have the Jacksonville Jaguars coming out of fucking nowhere, and it's very interesting to see.
Are we gonna have 2 sub 500 playoff teams this year?
We'll see. We'll talk about that game later, but I mean, Jacksonville does have a favorable matchup here coming up.
Yeah.
So hopefully we get.
The Texans are trying to ruin their tanks.
Yeah,
So.
exactly. They just might fuck this up and win the game.
Hey, remember how we needed a quarterback? We had Bryce Young in our hands. Watch us win our last 2 games and fuck that up.
Yeah, we ran the table at the end, kicked some ass. That's right.
Is
I
that
mean,
12?
you would be the absolute spoiler that'd be that'd be catastrophic to lose that game.
It wouldn't mean a thing. It wouldn't mean a thing.
Really.
Whoever wins that game in Week 18 between Jacksonville and Tennessee makes the playoffs. Period.
Oh well, let's see. Yeah, well,
because Jacksonville holds tiebreaker over Tennessee.
That's right.
Right.
So then, yeah.
So, a tied record between the two, Jacksonville goes through. Right.
So that makes this week.
No, flip that. Tied record, Tennessee goes through. Jacksonville wins this week. They're 8-8. Tennessee 7-9.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So then, yeah.
If Tennessee beats Jacksonville, they pop ahead of them. Jacksonville beats Tennessee, they stay ahead of them. Literally nothing changes regardless of what happens this week.
Interesting. Yeah. No, that's correct.
Is there a 12-4 team less convincing in NFL history than the Dallas Cowboys?
It's up and down.
I'm so fucking unimpressed by this team. They've had one impressive victory. It was the 40-3 win over the Vikings. Yeah. Beating Jeff Saturday 54-19 doesn't count as impressive to me. Sorry. Get that out of here. You squeak by the Texans, lose to the Jaguars, squeak by Gardner Minshew. You've beaten the Giants twice, who are a good spoiler team, but I don't think are a really great overall team. You lost to the Packers before they found form. You beat the Bears, meh. Commanders, meh. You beat the Bengals before their offensive line knew how to play. Their whole schedule feels like very unimpressive, and they've struggled to do what they've done in it.
Yeah, I think this is a team that their defense has looked like absolutely dominant at points, and shockingly just giving up a shit ton of points to teams that you have no reason to give up that many points to.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you have that interesting back and forth with them. I think their offensive situation right now, I'm not too sure what the whole condition as far as Tony Pollard is concerned.
A huge one too.
Yeah, that it's crazy how much it actually kind of hinges potentially on him being able to come back and be a contributor um, into the playoffs. I think that's pretty big for this team, as it
I
doesn't seem like they're going to be able to just get it done all the time through the air. I think there's times when Dak he has been able to throw the ball
yeah
around and he'll put up a 350 or so game with a couple tutties or whatever. But you have a start like you did last night, and it's like, Panic has set in a little bit. He did not look good at
no
all early on. So, um, yeah, cause for concern a bit. I would agree.
yeah, and Ezekiel Elliott's just cooked, right? Like he's still a good like I need 1 yard at the 1 yard line. Give it to Zeke. He'll pound his way in. If you need any more than a couple of yards, it's not getting it. He just doesn't have that in him anymore, I don't think. And man, he looked bad against that Tennessee defense. Like completely ineffective. I don't know. Without Tony Pollard especially, like going into the playoffs, you're not going to be playing Tennessee or Houston, right? Now, mind you, their first round matchup's likely going to be the winner of the AFC South. Here you go.
Yeah.
Here's a freebie. But then you're likely going to have to be going on the road to San Francisco or to Minnesota. Without Tony Pollard, I don't think you can do that.
Yeah. Yeah, I would have to agree. Like it's I think all of a sudden he has become, you know, the half and half carry back, but like this season you're not getting the same Zeke out there, and
Yeah.
yeah, I think you need that option. You need that threat. When he's healthy and he's going, he's too damn potent in that offense to not really have it hinder it when he's out. I think that's just it. It's this team looks drastically different when you don't have the ability to hand the ball off to him and utilize him in your short passing situations. Um, it helps keep this offense moving quite a bit, and Pollard has really become I think a necessary kind of feature. I don't see them having the ability to do nearly the same amount of things. I think some teams they can't. I think as much as this kind of homer thing, it feels like if you have kind of a dinged up Christian McCaffrey, I think you still find a way with the backs that the Niners have to be able to still have some potency out of that running game. I don't think you have that with Dallas Cowboys. I think it
No.
shows.
Yeah.
Clearly.
No, without Tony Pollard, there is no running game there. Malik Davis tried his best. He had what can uh, be best described as a poor game, but not awful. Um, but yeah, without Tony Pollard, there is no run game here. And like I said, I don't know if on the road at San Francisco or at Minnesota, that's a winnable game for you without Tony Pollard. And even with Tony, you still got to get past Mike McCarthy and doing weird Mike McCarthy things.
Yeah.
I don't get his play calling sometimes. I really don't.
So it becomes very interesting as we get down to it, because now we're looking at seedings perhaps,
Yeah.
and talked about earlier about the Niners are actually kind of really making a push, and it's a very interesting game this upcoming week between Minnesota and Green Bay. Green Bay fighting for a chance to get back into the playoffs after having a really dreadful 2/3 of the season basically. You have teams like Washington and New York out of the NFC East that have started to slip a little bit. Dallas is right there, perhaps in that conversation of not feeling as dominant as the record. Still going to be that 12-4. They're still going to potentially have the highest wild card out of everybody, but it becomes very interesting as far as how the seeding is going to shake up and who you're going to get. Washington is your 7th seed right now, and I don't care what you say. And they're going to Carson Wentz now, which we'll talk about that later. Is how we feel about that. But always gonna have they're a scary defense, no doubt about that. So you got to be a little bit aware of that, and they're not going to be a fun out for I think any team. New York Giants almost a little bit of the same thing, a team that when they're playing right, like we've said before, they don't make the mistakes. Defense plays well enough. They're able to generate enough offense. They're able to run the ball continuously on you. They'll stick to that plan. Dallas is the one that's really tenuous. They have a defense that can be absolutely on fire, but they have a defense that cannot. Like, they can absolutely give a bunch of points. They have a running game that is suspect to not being there. Yep. And a Dak that you could have a great game out of, but not at the same, like, he could... They're the highest wildcard seed, but they might be one of the more favorable teams, I would say, to potentially face out of the wildcard teams. If you're a division winner and you're lining up against one of those 3 NFC East teams, as it is right now in the wildcard, you might want to see Dallas.
Tom Brady's looking at Dallas right now and licking his fucking chops.
Yeah, and that's how it fall right now. That's how it fall right now.
That Tampa Bay defense absolutely shut down the Cowboys in week 1.
Yes.
A lot of that game was Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott got hurt, but it wasn't at the start of that game.
No.
It was late in the third quarter.
I mean, it's super spicy. I mean, like, and you can't count out the guys that are in the hunt. You know, this is a Seattle team that was there until they weren't. And they've had slipping, but it's still Geno Smith, who everybody kind of remembered and fell back in love with. The super hot Detroit team that unfortunately dropped an absolute stinker last week. Yeah. Really one they probably couldn't afford. Green Bay, that's all of a sudden right there with them and playing way better football, surprisingly enough. And Carolina out of fucking nowhere is actually even competitive.
But the fucking NFC South might send 2 teams to the playoffs.
Insane as it is, they're kind of right there. Yeah, it'll be very interesting to see how these wildcard teams mix up. NFC East, as it's scheduled right now, is scheduled to send all 4 of their teams into the playoffs. I don't think that's all it'll be by the end of it. And especially because I believe they play each other. Obviously, I think there's at least 1 or 2 of these teams playing each other at the very end here. So some intrigue in that.
They actually kind of avoid each other as far as knocking each other out of the playoffs. Because the Commanders have the Browns and Cowboys.
Okay.
And the Giants have the Colts and Eagles.
Okay.
So there's a very realistic...
So Dallas and Washington, though.
Dallas and Washington are already in, right? So if the Giants and Commies knock off the top 2 teams, there's a very realistic chance that all 4 teams making it.
I mean, Washington's right there. They're 7-1, so...
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, so Dallas and Philadelphia's already clinched the playoff spot.
Yeah.
Right? It's all just about who finishes first there. Commies beat the Browns. Giants beat the Colts. Then you go into next week, the bottom 2 teams in the NFC East beat the top 2 teams in the NFC East. All 4 teams in the NFC East go through. And a game, by the way, where if the Eagles win this week means nothing to either of those teams.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, very spicy on the NFC side.
I wouldn't count out the 4 NFC East teams. Now, again, we'll talk about what Washington's doing. Feels like they could fall out.
Perhaps. Yeah, let's just dive right into it. We're already kind of talking about next week's games anyways. Let's dive into our picks. We didn't make it super official. We didn't actually have an official episode, but I think that night, I can't remember what night, it was right before the games. Craig popped in the call. So we did make picks for last week. Craig doing pretty well last week on those picks. 10-6 on it. Not too shabby. I went 7-9, a little bit of slipping. We haven't been doing as great as of late. We're still holding it down, though. For myself, 102-87-6 on the year. So not too shabby. We're still 15 games over right there. Craig pulling back over 500, 95-94 5-6 on the year.
Dancing with the 500
Here we go. And if you're better than 500, you're winning right here. That's what the
I'm
game.
playing
Name
hopscotch
of the
with
game, baby.
500.
Name of the game. We'll dive right in, and unfortunately, we got a couple teams that just got bounced out, or actually, I think maybe Cards were probably bounced out the week before. Who knows? It's WoW, NFC, and whatever. Arizona going into Atlanta. We got a 4-11 versus a 5-10 team. Atlanta getting -3 as the hoster on this one. What you thinking? Battle of the Birds. As you could say
Fuck
that
it,
for
I'll
like
take
4
the
different teams.
Falcons.
Falcons.
um, I mean, both these teams pretty much suck right now.
Yeah, I mean,
Let,
yeah, was it 4-game
are
losing
we?
streak versus the 5-game losing streak right now?
Is Kyler back, or are we still Trace McSorley for the? No, no, no. David Blau. David Blau is going to be starting for the Cardinals against the Falcons.
Yep.
Hoping to see something out of Desmond Ritter. I was obviously a huge fan of him in college when he was with Cincy. Struggled a little bit out of the gate. I thought he looked a lot better last week. They just couldn't finish drives, and obviously I gotta address an elephant in the room right now. Drake London needs to fucking secure the ball a little bit more. That was his 4th fumble of the year.
Oh.
And a particularly costly one. He's incredibly talented, great receiver. 2 hands on the ball, please. Let's stop coughing up the ball. If Ritter continues to show the improvement he showed last week, Atlanta should win this game against David Blau. We've seen David Blau before in the NFL. He's not good. I gotta go with Atlanta on this one. I can't see David Blau leading this Cards team that already looks like shambles to a win. Right.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I got Atlanta myself. Just a little bit more there. You have perhaps a quarterback that, while it's I wouldn't say been good consistently, at least some throws, that sort of thing. Like the offense hasn't been to a complete stop. You have something you're working toward in the future.
Yep.
Arizona is not really getting that at all. They're just really going through the motions at this point.
Yeah.
So I feel like when you have something a little bit more to play for, you got that going for Atlanta.
Yep.
Only question I got, and you might be able to shed a little bit of light on this because I'm not always watching the Atlanta games so intently. It's sometimes not even coming out. But the interesting fall off, and obviously, injury right in the middle of the season when it felt like he was doing pretty well. Cordero Patterson, is it injury plus age, and they just like really are like kind of putting the baby gloves on him and just not running him that often? The usage as far as like his involvement in the offense has fallen off. I know they like Al Jair, right? As far as their running backs concerned, and that's going to be potentially the future. But is that just it? It's just really we're just looking for what we got.
Yeah. And honestly, Algiers just been outrunning him the last couple of weeks. It is that simple.
But like pass catching too, like he would be.
Yeah,
Cordero
they've
was
been scaling back Cordero a lot.
Yeah,
they've been scaling back Cordero a lot. I do think it's a little bit of they expect he's going to be back next season, with them being kind of the spell more to Algier than he will be the starter, right? Which I think works really well with Cordell Patterson's skill set, right? He's a great pass catcher. He runs the ball well, right? I think him and Algier can make a nice tandem in that sense. But it is just, don't get hurt anymore. We're gonna play out the rest of this year, see what Algier can do. See if he and Desmond Ritter can get something going here on offense. Next year, we'll implement you back in as the third down catching back, the running back, the kind of do-it-all gadget guy that you were last season. Let's see what we got here. It does feel like a lot of that. He hasn't been on the field for a ton of runs. He hasn't been great, but again, it's you're off for 5 plays, and you come in, get the ball for a play, head off. Right, that's a hard thing to do. I do think it's more just let's see what Tyler can do. I don't think.
Yeah.
And I think it's probably been talked about with Cordero too, because he doesn't seem like he's upset by it or anything like that. It doesn't seem like a thing where it's causing issues. I think they probably talked to him about it and listen, come back off the injury. This season's kind of lost for us now. We're gonna give the kid a little bit of a run out, see what he does. Next year we'll work you guys together and kind of see how the best formation of this works.
Right. Yeah, I mean, yeah, and not an easy injury to take.
No.
I wouldn't have been surprised if it was really just like, yeah, he's just we're not going to give him the workload based on that. But yeah, it seems like they have, again, a team that's perhaps looking toward the future a little bit more. They got something they're working toward. So yeah, as much as we brought in Ritter as far as that conversation, you might be getting the same thing as far as your backfield. You obviously have a guy like Drake London, as a potential weapon for you going forward. So yeah, building upon that, I no reason to think that this Falcons team won't be competitive right there next season in the NFC South, based on how this fucking division looks.
It's easy to forget that this is a Falcons team that has been inconsistent at quarterback all year. Did lose Kyle Pitts. That's a big loss, regardless of how frustrating it was that they weren't using him at times. Even having him out there is enough to force attention onto him, right? Come back next year, you'll have Pitts, London, Algier, right? You'll have maybe Ritter, maybe somebody else. Who knows where they're going there? I think it's going to depend on Ritter's last 2 games. If Ritter can do more of what he did last week against Baltimore, complete passes at a regular clip, find a way to finish a couple of those drives in the end zone, do that for the last 2 games, I think he's given the reins for next year. I think they look to get a veteran guy who can maybe come in as a backup, help him out. If not, they might be a little bit more active in the quarterback market, looking for somebody who can start over top of Ritter for now. Everybody knew Ritter coming out of college was a little bit of a project. He was close, but there was still some things he had to work on. So we'll see. We'll see how these last 2 games go for him. But this is all just about building the next year. Whereas you're right, with Atlanta, there's nothing to play for here right now. There's not somebody on this team where you go, yeah, but that guy next year is going to be a guy. They don't even have that.
Yeah.
Right? There's not a receiver who you can look forward to the catches for. You're playing David Blau at quarterback. He's not going to be around next year. Right? There's nothing there. It's the J.J. Watt retirement tour, right? And
yeah.
That's just, I gotta imagine that's going to be hard to get up for.
It's one of those situations to where I thought, this team, everything kind of, working well. I saw the Cardinals, probably as the worst team in the division, but absolutely still looking competitive out there. 6-7 win team, always a threat, could ruin playoff chances for any given team, really. The fall off, a lot of injuries, obviously. And it's surprising. It's surprising to see them at this point, at this juncture in this point of the season. But yeah, the Falcons, they're going to be right there. I see no reason why you can't build off of some of the things you're setting right now. Be a competitive team. I mean, this is the Falcons team. Hey, everybody's fallen in love, and they've got the Niners at the top of their power rankings, who Falcons beat earlier this season. Very surprise win. They were able to scrap it out, played a really good defensive game, and they could do it. They could do it at that top level. So I don't see any reason why you can't continue some of that kind of momentum. This is obviously weeks and weeks ago, different teams at this point, but
Yeah.
why not? Like, team that's willing to scrap out there, win a game, a tough one at that. So
I will throw it out there. Without the injury to AJ Terrell, I still think Atlanta had a good shot of winning this division. I think that AJ Terrell
yeah,
injury, you lose a top cornerback like that on a team that's already a little bit thin at the position, death.
Hmm.
Death nail at that point, right? Without it, they might have still been in this. They might have still had a say in this division race. They were leading it for that win against San Francisco.
Yeah.
Right? So I I think it's worth noting as well with Atlanta that, like, for a team that came in with such little expectation, not a lot of talent there, they stayed competitive. They never stopped being competitive. And I think we're going to see more out of Desmond Ridder, more out of Tyler Algier. I think there's just more to play for here for Atlanta.
Yeah. Let's keep it going. Move on to the next game. A team that's still playing for quite a bit, and a team that's also a little bit in that Atlanta Falcons situation, looking toward the future. We got the Chicago Bears going into Detroit to face off against the Lions. Chicago coming in at 3-12. Lions sitting at 7-8. Lions getting -6.5 here at home. Lions have made themselves all of a sudden a piece of the playoff conversation. Unfortunately, taking a pretty bad loss last week. Chicago's been on the slide for a while now, with the only hopeful kind of positive thing coming is that you're finding some footing with an offense led by Justin Fields. But who do you got in this game?
I think the Lions maul them. You have a line of 6, right?
I have 6.5.
6.5 doesn't matter. I'm still taking the Lions. I think they maul them.
Yeah.
I think you're gonna get a very pissed off Lions team after what happened last week, right? Disappointing loss, put themselves really backs against the wall. Game that they really should have won against the Panthers. I think they come in against this Bears team, obviously divisional rivalry. A Bears team that, yeah, playing for next year, showing a lot of good things. Justin Fields will continue to look good, but this Bears team is completely checked out as far as the results go. I think Jared Goff goes off in this one, and I just think the Lions maul them.
I got the Lions as well. Yeah, this is a tough one as far as the if you're just looking at like some of the like good and bad points of these teams. The only good aspect of Chicago's defense is their play against the pass. The only real good aspect of Detroit's offense has been the pass. They've been all right as rushing, but that's been up and down. Obviously, you had all the DeAndre Swift injuries and that sort of thing. Jamal Williams is really just a touchdown machine, not really someone who's really getting you yards in big chunks like that. But all that's being said, you're talking about the two worst defenses in the league, both giving up over 26 points a game. If anybody's going to be able to take advantage of that, it's going to be Detroit. Detroit in a wash. Easy for me. Yeah, let's keep going. On to the next one. We got, we already buried them enough, so let's maybe just talk about the how bad it's going to be here. We got Denver going into KC to face off against the Chiefs. Chiefs getting -10 at home. Denver sitting at 4-11. Chiefs at 12-3 on this one.
The spread you had was much kinder than the spread I had.
What do you have?
I had KC -12.5.
Oh, jeez, another 2.5 points. Where's this spread coming from?
KC.
Yeah, I mean, I still have KC too on that.
I went off. I have one off the ones on ESPN.com.
Okay.
Yeah, I still had KC. I think KC easily wins this game by 17 plus. It's that like, if this was week 8 Denver, I'd be taking Denver all day because that defense is going to keep this game relatively close.
Yes.
The defense looks just hapless now, right? Like they've completely fallen apart.
Yeah.
And
it's crazy to see that they're actually still rated, as far as points against, still rated 7th in the league. But they
Yeah.
were like 2nd, and they fall into 7th, and it's been a dramatic fall. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's it's not the same defense that we're seeing out there. Giving up 51 points to the Rams is pretty inexcusable. I know, obviously, some short fields given to the
Yeah.
other side in that one, so you can't kick the defense the entire time. But that's even more reason. I think this is a Kansas City defensive side that's going to be looking for sacks.
Yeah.
They are obviously going to move the ball offensively. Yeah, I don't see any reason why we're not easily looking at double digits. Now, 12.5 will make it a little bit more interesting. But yeah, I got KC by a couple tutties anyway. So still go
Yeah.
KC myself on that one. But yeah.
Yeah. No, it's I think this is going to be a little bit ugly. And by a little bit ugly, I mean very ugly.
And we shall see on that one. Yeah, Sunday morning on that. Move on to the next one. We got Miami going into New England. New England getting plus 2.5 here at home. It's an 8-7 Miami team that's been sliding. New England team that yeah, they've looked every bit of 500, sub 500, and yeah, lost their last couple. It's been a rough one for New England, but it's kind of coming apart for Miami at the same time. Losers of 4 straight after their nice streak that they had. So, what do you think on this one?
Winner of this game will control their own destiny heading into the final week. The loser will not. I know the Dolphins are setting Teddy 2 gloves.
Yes.
And I know that sounds bad. I'm taking the Dolphins. Despite all that. I don't know what's going on with New England right now. But they are amongst the most poorly coached teams in the NFL right now. And that is fucking saying something because your head coach is Bill Belichick.
Yeah.
But that offense doesn't know what the fuck it's doing at the best of times. Right? Mac Jones has moments of brilliance followed by moments of where the fuck were you throwing that ball? Ramondre Stevenson can break off a 30-yard run and then just fumble it with nobody around him. I don't know what is going on with that offense, but it is in shambles. I don't know. I don't know. It feels like the Dolphins are gonna win this one.
This one's a little tough. I was able to pick this one, and just like on a gut feeling, I just kind of went with the pick. You said Dolphins.
Yeah, Dolphins.
And I went Dolphins too, but it was like I went on that on a gut pick because I just feel like Dolphins should be a better team here. But this is really a tale of a shockingly bad defense that all of a sudden the Dolphins are putting out. It was rough early, and then it looked like they kind of resolved themselves to be at least the middle of the road, but they are still really not playing well. They're not. They haven't been effective in keeping points off the board. Bad against the pass. Can't get interceptions. And middling on sacks as far as generally over the year. But then on the other side, you have that shockingly bad offense that you have from the Patriots. And I think it's pretty obvious. You didn't hire an offensive coordinator, so your offense sucks because you have Matt Patricia, who is a defensive coach, calling plays. No wonder this team sucks on offense. You didn't really even give him a chance. And that's a front office, Bill Belichick combo, terrible decision. I don't know what the hell they were thinking with that. Trying to go out there week after week with that decision making, basically. Again, though, I picked Miami. Gut feeling is that the better team. They should be able to win this by it's 2.5. So you talk about a win by 3. Should be able to do that. Teddy Bridgewater is just fine. I think Teddy Bridgewater is better than the quarterback on the other side right now, for sure. So, and as long as you don't have that catastrophic, 3 picks in the fourth quarter sort of game that you got from Tua last week, who's now found a concussion protocol, and then you take a look at the hit that he took, and it's like, wow, yeah, they should maybe be taking a look out for this guy. As much as you don't want to,
what are they doing with this guy? That's just the second time that they've done this, by the way, where it's like,
and they got
Tua got absolutely destroyed on a play, and let's just throw it back out there. Yeah, no, fuck it. Who gives a shit if the guy ends up with serious brain damage and can't lead a normal life anymore? It's football, baby.
Yeah.
Fuck off with this. It almost made me pick New England in this game. It almost hit the moral levels of, like, I refuse to pick Cleveland levels of bad. Stop it. Protect your damn players.
Yeah. And, you go out there, you only keep them out there because you got to win the football game, but ultimately it's a decision that I felt like cost him that game.
He looked rough in that fourth quarter.
Yeah.
Like, again, one of those hindsight things where it's like, well, yeah, now we know he's got a concussion, so those bad throws feel worse, but they were bad throws. Like, really bad.
Yeah. And we'll keep the conversation moving. Talk about really bad. We got the Indianapolis Colts, and they're going into New York to face off against the Giants. Giants getting -3 in this game. Both teams with ties in this season. 8-6-1 for the Giants. 4-10-1 for the Colts. Surprising, obviously, for both sides. This is a Giants team that was surprised everybody. It looked really good. It has been a bit of a fall off, and now you have to start questioning exactly where they're going to fall in the mix as far as the playoffs are concerned. The Colts, my feeling, they should have been the best team easily in the AFC South. They haven't been anything but and are one of the worst teams in the NFL right now. But yeah, Giants just getting the -3 here at home. Who do you got?
I'll have you know, at -6, I still had the Giants. Because my spread had Giants at -6.
Jesus Christ! Why are these spreads so different? What the fuck?
Yeah, ESPN, man, they're loving themselves some teams. Yeah, no, Giants. Giants will win this by double digits.
Yeah, I got Giants easy. Colts are, I mean, you're there's nothing to really salvage. Obviously, you're done as far as playoffs are concerned. Your losses have, the 20-3 effort they just put up against the Chargers, like, kind of speaks for itself. Giants are still scrapping there. They were right there against Minnesota. Tied ball game. Lose to a 61-yard field goal. It doesn't have the same spark, obviously. This Giants team's been slipping, but I still, Dable versus Saturday as far as the coaching matchup. I like still what Dable's doing with the Giants here. Should be able to handle this game, and they need it. This is like, there's no fucking around right here. Get the win against a team that you should dominate right now. As much as I like guys, like, it's really a shame to see a guy like DeForest Buckner go away from the Niners and then kind of a few of his prime years really kind of get trashed on a team like this right now.
Yeah.
Kind of a shame in that regard. Kayvon Thibodeau?
No.
Yeah, kind of rubbing it in everybody's faces, and you doubted me? How dare you, sort of thing. He's looking like an absolute fucking stud, dude.
You'll remember, I had him as my number 1 overall pick in
right.
the draft special.
That's right.
He was, in my opinion, the best one coming out, right? Like, so I feel like this is a good time to talk about it.
Yeah.
Because we're talking about Kayvon Thibodeau. I don't understand this trend recently in the NFL of, like, picking physical traits over the guy who has proven to produce. It's happening a lot, and it's really weird to me. Trayvon Walker had like 3 sacks in college. The guy was not a pass rusher. He didn't do that particularly well. Yet he hopped ahead of Kayvon Thibodeau because like he's 6'5", he's a beast. He pops off the page at you when you look at him. Did you not see that he ran a 4.8 40 at that size? Same thing happened with Trey Lance. Same thing's going to happen this year with Anthony Richardson, by the way. Somebody's going to take Anthony Richardson in the first round. Dude completed 57% of his passes at Florida. But he's 6'4", and he runs well. First rounder, baby. This is going to keep happening. If teams continue to just ignore production for who looks sexy, it's going to keep happening. Kayvon Thibodeau was easily the best prospect coming out of this draft. It wasn't even close, right? But no, we got Trayvon Walker, he looks sexy, and then you got a few teams that don't need edge rushers, and then, before you know it, Kayvon Thibodeau falls back to the Giants, and they're looking at everybody going, really? We get Kayvon Thibodeau? Of course he's an absolute machine. He was supposed to be. I don't get it.
Yeah, I mean he's shown out. It's it'll be, everybody loves to like you take a look and you have the bust and the great picks, that sort of thing. I think always lost in that is those like top round guys, but they weren't the number one, that sort of thing. Yep. But they absolutely, it's just like, they were just like 5-6 teams that passed on them, perhaps. Thibodeau, I think only 5 teams because Giants had 2 picks, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's like only a handful of teams really passing it. They went with more their guy who they felt comfortable with. Some of those guys are good, so it's like you can't really like fault it too much. But yeah, that's going to be one that there's going to be a couple GMs out of that are just be like, son of a bitch, like, yep, that's. No, they'll know. You've made a mistake, and it's a. That's the beauty of the draft. I think honestly, is there's those ones you have a guy that's just slightly above on the board, and you just like, no, we got to go with our guy. We got him ready to hire.
Yep.
We got him. He's available to us, and it was just that one spot, and yep. There's probably a lot of guys that just missed their opportunity with certain teams. Maybe had worse careers. Who knows? It's just like the alternate universe sort of feel to it, to where, yeah, probably a lot of people had Thibodeau right there. They just didn't have him quite high rated enough. They went with their guy, and now they might be kicking themselves going down the line. But we'll see.
It's just something that I just haven't gotten this trend in recent years of like I get it. There's guys who have all the physical traits in the world, right? And sometimes it's just hard to ignore that. But a lot of times it's the guys who show you it on tape, right? The reason you have guys play 4 years of college football is because you don't want to be drafting guys out of high school who aren't ready to play in the NFL. Right? That's the whole reason. The reason why you want them going through the college process is because a 17-year-old kid going into the NFL is not physically ready. He's going to get mauled no matter how talented he is. So you go through college football. You do all the stuff. Trevor Lawrence, there's a reason he was the number one guy the whole way, because he showed it on the field. Right? And you look at what Justin Fields is doing now in Chicago. It's not a surprise. It's what he did for 3 years at Ohio State, right? It's just one of those things where I don't get why the tape is being pushed so far down the line now in the scouting process. As far as like, yeah, but did you see this guy's 40 time? Right? Well, that's a good 40. He benched 35 reps, man. It's like, well, that's great. But he also had 3 sacks in college, right? Whereas this guy at Oregon, a top school in a top conference, had 46.
Yeah.
I know who I'd want.
Yeah, it's
There's got to be a better balance of this, I feel like.
yeah, I think it's gone away a little bit. I don't think maybe 40 times and that sort of thing are as hyped as they once were. I think there was a time where it was like there
I
was
mean,
I would say a handful of years ago where it was like that was all anybody was bringing up about
yeah,
certain players. And there's a little bit of pushback, but absolutely no. I ultimately coming back around and say, yeah, in general, it's amazing the um, I think college just has so much. There's such a variance at the level of play, obviously, because you have so many goddamn teams that you could be playing. As far as not only at the Division 1 level, but those guys will be playing Division 2 opponents or 2A, whatever the
yeah.
hell it's called. Um, and so you get like weird disparity as far as like stat lines and that sort of thing when it's considered that. But it's the fundamental like how this has been built in for the NFL and as far as college and the draft, that sort of thing. There is no other avenue in which to have that out of high school evaluation of talent, getting these kids past their teen years into their 20s to where they will actually be able to take the field against grown fucking men, basically. And the lack of a developmental system and the reliance on doing it through the colleges, that sort of thing. When it's really just not the avenue for everybody. And it's just interesting in like the um you have to kind of like they've obviously like played nice with each other, and I don't think that relationship will go away anytime soon. I don't think we'll ever have really like a triple A for the NFL outside of maybe guys that are going. We've seen moderates. I would say actually, there's probably more guys that are coming out of maybe the CFL or something like that than you'd expect as far as making teams, at least making practice squads and all that. It just like I wonder how unfortunate it is for those guys that aren't as part of those top schools. Um, you know that still go through perhaps the 3-4 years in college, and yeah, like you just get lost in the whole fucking mess of it. Basically, I think there's a lot of talent that's probably out there that's not tapped because there's not a real proper developmental avenue for some of these guys. You just get lost in the myriad of colleges that there is, and it's just there's only so many spots to write so many guys. Not everybody's going to fucking Georgia, Bama, Notre Dame, whatever. You got half the squad for Notre
Yeah.
Dame sitting out for the draft apparently.
Yeah.
Uh, that's not going to be the case for plenty of these guys, and you got to feel that there is talent that's being lost out there because there's this. It all gets kind of flattened out, and there's certain ones that are going to peak above the rest of them, basically.
I do think with a fairly successful first season of the USFL, you got the XFL coming next year.
Mm-hmm.
Um, touchdown Irish. Um, I do think there is something to be learned from our friends over in Europe with European football.
Right.
Because they do something really well over there that I think NFL teams could really adapt here. And no, it's not promotion relegation.
Oh damn! I want to do this conversation again. We've done it before. I love it.
We all know that North American sports should do promotion relegation. It's the fucking best form of it, but it's never going to happen.
It'd be so good.
So we have to take that and put it off to the side. Something they do in European football that I think with now 2 feeder leagues essentially
Right.
that you can use is the loan system.
Right.
Right. Where let's say Liverpool, for example, team I support, has a young player they really like, but you're never going to get him in for first team football right now, right? Your team's too strong and this young player's not quite ready to play at the EPL level. You loan him to a team in the championship, right? You loan him to a Blackburn or a Stoke, right? And he plays the full season as a starter there, right? Gets reps, gets experience, gets to play against players who are of a very high level, gaining that experience, gaining those reps, then comes back at the end of the season having gained that year of experience. Maybe now is a time where you can start to break him in. I think with two lower feeder teams now, it was 2 lower feeder systems now. If you can work out some kind of a deal there between the 3 leagues where they have some kind of a system where San Francisco, say, drafts Brock Purdy, right? As an example, because we were talking about him, and I can't think of another player who was drafted late this year who hasn't really gotten to play so much.
Yeah.
So we're going to use Brock Purdy. Let's say hypothetically Trey Lance didn't get injured this year.
Right.
You could have loaned him to Birmingham, right? To the Birmingham Stallions. He can be their starting quarterback for a year, get in those reps, come back after that season. You've got a year of experience of pro football against pro football players, right? You got to let these leagues establish themselves first, obviously,
sure.
Right? The XFL and USFL, they need a couple of years to establish themselves. And I think they will, by the way. I think the USFL proved it's possible. They had a pretty decent year as far as like first year football league with with very minimal hype behind it, actually, if you compare it to the XFL and AAF before them.
Right.
Ended up with like ratings that were above what they were asked to do. Ended up being profitable in year 1. These are the kind of things that you can build towards. So in 3-4 years' time, if these leagues can survive and gain an audience and gain popularity, perhaps now you can work out a deal where it's like, okay, the NFL will pay these leagues X amount of money a year to make sure that they stay alive and that they can use them then for their teams to kind of loan players down who they feel like could use the first team reps. Right? I think that's a system that could work really well to get these young players playing time.
Right. Yeah, I the only thing I guess that will be a little tricky is that, like, the amount of turnover that you have within a team based on, how injuries rack up. I mean, there's a reason why NFL teams have 53 players rostered.
Yeah.
They're only really, you have 11 and 11, on each side. So, 22 starters and obviously special teams, that sort of thing kind of fills out. But essentially, you're already rostering a decent pool of backups to be able to jump in at a given time. Not exactly the same style of roster building that you have as you would in, a soccer or baseball or whatever. That makes it so easy to kind of come back, NHL, obviously, the two-way contract, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
It makes it a little trickier in that standpoint because you can't hemorrhage a team so much that they're not able to field theirs. Like, you still have to put the product in for the lower league. So it's just a little tricky in that regard. But I love the idea of players that, like, those guys, they have to find kind of their home. They're your practice squad guys. They're your next man up, perhaps, if you're really in an emergency in your starting 50 or your 53 set. That these are guys that you can rely on and go back to. I think there's something there for it, but it's just like it's interesting the dynamic with how large football teams are and how many backups and that sort of thing you need to account for, and it's putting out a full squad. But
So I think why it would work is because these leagues play at a different time than the NFL.
Sure.
Right. These leagues aren't concurrent. The player who you draft and then you go, we're gonna loan you out to Birmingham for a year.
Yeah.
Right. Your first year, we're gonna loan you to Birmingham over the summer. You're gonna play a full season of professional football in a professional league, and then we're gonna bring you back in training camp. See how we feel, right? See how that year went. See if you're ready to really step in. I think the reason why that works is because they play at different times, right? You can literally have them play a full season, and he can come back for training camp, be ready to go, right?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that would be the potential bridge. You could absolutely have guys that will have that successful season, that spring ball season that will, have the potential to making, fall rosters and training camps by the time it comes around. So
as opposed to like you draft a guy in the 6th round and he's just either going to be a practice squad guy or a released guy. We know that already. right? It's up to him to play his way onto the practice squad. He actually has a chance to showcase himself in live game reps.
Yeah.
Comes into the camp. Now all of a sudden you look at him a little bit differently. Now it's maybe like he was like really good against pro ball players, right? And you look at the guys who are playing in these leagues, there's some names there. There's names of guys you know, right? So when it's like, he got 3 sacks against, this quarterback who was in the league for 7 years and played for a bunch of teams and is really well respected. He got 3 sacks against him, made him look silly. Yeah. Maybe he's got a spot on the roster, right? Maybe this is a guy who could, right? I just think there's a way for that to work out so that it gets guys more time to be seen by their coaches, by their management, right? As opposed to, there's only so much you can see in practice, right? There's only so much you can see in preseason games.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that's what it's all about. It's literally getting actual game reps against professionals.
Yeah,
which is
live game reps that
extra
mean something
that
against
extra
guys.
It's that extra rep, that better tape than what you're saying, like Trey Lance against Furman. Who gives a shit?
Exactly.
See what he does against grown fucking men, and that's what you would. That's what you get.
You loan Trey Lance to the San Antonio team, right? Now he's playing against guys who, had a couple seasons in the NFL, looking to get back, guys who have been around for a while, and he looks good there. Well, now hold on. Now that perception's different.
Yeah. It'd be interesting, like, obviously you just literally don't have a number, obviously, of teams. It doesn't work out like a NHL or MLB situation where you have team for team almost, right? You have your affiliate essentially as far as, so that would be interesting if it ever grew to that point to where you have, your Atlanta Falcons affiliate, kind of sister team or whatever in those lower leagues. That would be a very interesting, that's looking way down the line sort of thing.
Way
but
in the future, yeah.
That's, I think that's something they should potentially look for. You talk about getting spring ball back involved, getting a connection there, get interest driven up by fans, just all the more revenue, that sort of thing. It's money for everybody, baby. So I don't see why not, honestly, in some regards. But that's down the line. And I think, but yeah, I think there's a lot of potential there as far as utilizing, those leagues, those other supplemental spring leagues that you could pull that talent from. And better tape. I'd be way more interested in seeing how guys played when they're out in those systems than those garbage college games sometimes.
Yeah.
Let's keep it going though. We've derailed off the picks right there, but that's quite fine. We know about derailing all the time around here. New Orleans going into Philadelphia. Philly getting -5.5 at home. Philly 13-2. Starting the Gardner Minshew, although I believe Jalen Hurts now actually practicing, so a little bit of a better sign there for the Eagles.
Still listed as doubtful.
Saints still rolling with the Red Rocket out there, I believe, at quarterback. Who do you got in this one?
Eagles.
Yeah,
I thought Minshew looked very good last week against the Cowboys. I thought he showed, like, I'm sorry, I still look at Gardner Minshew and I look at the guys who are starting around the league. He's better than a good chunk of them, right? There's a large number of starters in the league. Looking at you, Nick Foles, and I look at Gardner Minshew and I go, "You're better than him." Yeah, it's not a huge step down for the Eagles, right? Obviously, Jalen Hurts is a great quarterback. Gardner Minshew, still a guy who could be a starting caliber quarterback in the NFL. It's not a massive step down. This Eagles team is way better than the Saints. I think this is it for the Saints' playoff hopes. They're still technically alive. They're dead after this game.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, Saints need it, but I don't see enough from them. I got Philly as well. Lions right there, like 6-7 points. I could see this being potentially like maybe not a complete blowout by the Eagles, but I mean across the board, yeah, you don't have Hurts, but I think Minshew is acceptable in that regard, and you have a pretty goddamn good team otherwise in the Eagles. Saints have, they've had kind of their up and downs. I guess surprisingly, Dalton has. Oh no, what we got? I'm seeing the reaction over here.
UCLA scored a touchdown to take the lead against Pittsburgh with about a minute and a half left, and Pittsburgh just kicked a field goal to win the game.
Wow. There you go.
Holy man, what a Sun Bowl that was.
All right. Nice. But yeah, I got Philly. Just overall better team. Minshew, you won't see so crazy a drop off, and just a better squad out there.
Yep.
Carolina going into Tampa Bay to face the Bucks. Panthers coming off a surprising run all over performance against Detroit. Tampa Bay coming off another struggling but somehow pulling off a win against a very beat up Arizona team. Panthers coming at 6-9. Tampa at 7-8. This is getting scrappy for the NFC South here. Who do you got? -7 for Tampa Bay, by the way, if I didn't mention that.
-7. Our lines are crazy. I got Tampa Bay -3.
Wow, and that seems like a way better line. I'm just going off the Yahoo Sports ones.
Yeah. No, that's insane to me that they're so different. It didn't matter which one it is. I got Carolina outright, baby. They're knocking off the Bucks.
Yeah.
Not only do I think they're knocking off the Bucks, I legitimately think Sam Darnold's going to outplay Tom Brady in this game. Which, if you had told me I was going to say that a year ago today, I'd have laughed at you. But Sam Darnold has looked pretty fucking decent recently.
He really has.
He hasn't been a world beater out there, but he hasn't had to be. He's been good enough with a Carolina defense that has been strong to get them wins. I think he does it again.
Yeah, this Carolina team, they've been looking quite a bit different since early November. Win against Denver, that was pretty sound. But the last 3 games have been against teams all right here in that wheelhouse, right in that sub 500, like kind of making a push here or trying not to fall out of it. A impressive win against Seattle, I would say. And, although slipping to Pittsburgh there, a Detroit team that looked so like they were really on fire. Kind of really shut him down and setting rushing records for the franchise.
Because I dropped Deontay Foreman, so of course he had to do that.
Yes. That's shit. That hurts. But we Tampa Bay has been that defense, it can't be denied. They're still damn good out there. They've literally kept them around. Tom Brady's been able to pull some late game bullshit. I don't see it though. I got Carolina myself. Outright, I would say they have a really damn good chance to win this game. So I agree. I'm surprised by the line, how much that changed.
-6. That made that really easy for me.
Yeah.
At -3, I was like,
no, -7. -7.
-7. That's even worse.
7 flat. It's crazy.
At -3, I was like, I do have them, but man, I could easily see Tampa Bay pulling some bullshit out and winning this one late. And Ooh, I don't get that line at all.
No. Bet MGM. I don't know. Keep it going though. That one. I think that'll be a very intriguing game. Should be a spicy one there. A couple teams, sub 500, but it is going to be a lot for the playoffs here going forward. So should be a good one there. Cleveland going into Washington. Washington getting -2 at home. Cleveland sitting at, I believe, a 6-9 record. Washington, after their loss last week, dropping back down to 500, 7-1 on the year. Who you got?
I mean, listen, I made it clear at the start of the season.
Yeah.
I will not pick the Browns.
Right.
Morally refuse. So I'm going to pick the Commanders. I hate the decision to go to Carson Wentz here.
Yeah.
Absolutely hate it.
Yeah.
I didn't even think Heineke played that poorly against San Francisco.
He didn't, actually. I watched that game. He did not.
The hook at all. I was like, yeah, the interception wasn't great, but he's moving the ball all right, right? Like, they're moving the ball decently. 13, like, and that was just me looking at it without seeing the stats. 13 of 18 for 166, 2 touchdowns and a pick? That's not hook worthy. That's not get him the fuck out of the game worthy. I get Wentz was all was pretty much equal to that coming off the bench. He wasn't better than that, by the way. He was just about that good.
Yeah.
But I don't get leaving Heineke here. I really don't get it.
Yeah, I mean, it's the pick. There was a fumble in there, I believe, as well. But yeah, I mean, Heineke gets you a touchdown late in the third, and this is a one-score game. It's 21-14 at one point.
Yep.
And, Niners are able to drive the ball, but it's field goal, field goal, field goal. Nice little bend, don't break offense, or defense, I should say, from Washington. And then, yeah, they pulled, and they went to Wentz. Granted, they were able to get a tutty with Wentz. Wentz kind of did Wentz things. He had just a crazy shovel pass out of a super broken play that really Carson Wentz is one of the few guys that's going to make that play. It was a nice little like 30, 40 yard breakout kind of scramble play that was unique to him, I suppose. That's the element you potentially get. But yeah, I mean, Heineke, I like the ability that, yeah, I think you just get a little bit more of and not a little bit more, you get quite a bit more of a consistency out of the kid than you do with Carson Wentz. Simple as that. And you see the flash with Carson there, and it's what's going to lead to him starting this next week. I don't love it, but better team than Cleveland. So I got Washington myself. I think it's kind of a mistake. Yeah, Heineke didn't have a, god awful, like terrible game to where I felt like you need to pull him. You were right there. You were right there within 2 scores still when you pulled him. And you're playing against this is the top defense right here. Do you really want to do that? Yeah. I think it's a quick pull. I wonder how it's going to work out for him down the line. I mean, you're still playing for a playoff spot here. So, intriguing, to say the least. That being said, this Cleveland team, we talked about them before. It's not great. They're really... They're struggling to put up any real offense. Jacoby Brissett, I think we liked him kind of in the first half. He was kind of doing all right. I think right now it's just kind of catching up to him. Nick Chubb's not getting the same kind of traction that he has been, and yeah, I don't think they'll.
Because teams can throw 7 in the box, right?
Exactly.
And just...
8. Yeah, you're stacking them, dude. You're stacking them. Absolutely. Why would you not at this point prove that you could beat me through the air, sort of thing? And yeah, it hasn't worked out for him. So I like Washington. Yeah.
Yeah, no, Deshaun can't rub and tug his way to this one. This is it's not good in Cleveland right now. Oh yeah, and they're fucked out of draft picks too. So there you go. Enjoy it. It's gonna be bad for a while.
Yeah. Yeah, can't help but agree. The team that just gave up Deshaun on that one, and but the much more intriguing Jacksonville Jaguars going to be facing off. Jacksonville heading into Houston. Houston getting +6 here at home. Jags sitting at 7-8. Houston just getting their second win of the season, sitting at 2-12-1. Who you got on this one?
I think this game's actually going to be a little bit closer than people think it will be.
Yeah.
For some reason, Houston is very determined to ruin the tank that they have perfectly crafted. Like, they're very determined to get 2 more wins and make sure that they don't get the first overall pick. It's very bizarre, but they've been playing really good football recently. I actually got Houston to cover this. I think Jacksonville wins.
Yeah.
But I think this game is shockingly close.
We're right in line. I actually have Houston as well. Same thing. 6 is just enough on that spread. Yeah. I got Houston playing competitive football week in, week out. It's not been wins. It's kind of been ugly at some points, but I have a feeling that the Jags have all the potential to just have kind of a flat game. I feel.
Oh yeah.
There's a reason why they've lost 8 this season, and they could put up the 40-14 stinger that they put in at the beginning of the month here. But better team. I feel like they'll still get the win. But I think Houston can keep it within that 6 easily. So I like that pick, Houston. Keep it going into the Jason Stidham. Is that his fucking name for the Raiders?
Yeah, Jared Stidham.
Jared, poor bastard. San Francisco going into Las Vegas to face off against the Raiders. Raiders sitting at 6-9. Niners at 11-4. Raiders getting plus 4.5 here at home. You already know. I got the Niners. I got the Niners by a lot. And I'll put it out there right off the bat. It's been talked about. There's been some numbers thrown out there. Defensive player of the year and that sort of thing. We got some sack records on the line, too, right now. This is going to be, I guess, Bosa's 40th or 50th game. And there's only a couple guys, that being Von Miller and I'm trying to think of the Hall of Famer otherwise. There's another player. But basically...
It's Michael Strahan you're trying to think of.
Is it? No, well... It's within their first 50 games or something like that.
Are you talking about I thought you were talking about the sacks in a season record.
No. Sacks in the season, I don't think... Yeah, that's quite a stretch, I believe, for Bosa right now, right?
5 sacks in the last 2 games.
5 sacks. Well, this would help. We got 5 gifted subs on the line for it. This will be my bet for the year, especially because they decide to put out this poor son of a bitch out there at quarterback right now, Jared Stidham.
Jared Stidham.
Give me plus or equal to, I guess, 3.5 sacks for Nick Bosa in this game.
Oh, that's intriguing because that's right at the line where if you had said 2.5, I'd have said no, I'm not going to take it. I feel like 3.5 though. Oh, yeah,
I'll spice it. No. Okay, I was going to say to spice it up even a bit more. Plus 1 forced fumble.
Yeah, I'll definitely take it then.
I'll spice it up. I'll go with forced fumbles too, because usually when he gets the hits,
I could easily see this being a 3-sack game. I could easily see this being a 3-sack game. 4 would be really spicy. But
I mean, we've already dove into actually kind of both these teams. It's a tough one for I would say, any quarterback really, but the fact that they Carr at this line makes it a little spicy, but I'm obviously still going to kind of go with the Niners in that regard. But, man, you just really throwing... This is the worst possible game you could throw this kid out to the Wolves on. By far, probably the defense that at this point not only is just, just having the success and the points, that sort of thing, but you got just the multitude of different players that are able to contribute. You only are getting healthier with guys like Javon Kinlaw starting to practice again, getting back on the field, getting more D-line depth. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like you had a little bit of an off game from Travarius Ward, I think, in that last game. If
Yeah.
there's one thing that Washington was able to do is actually be able to move the ball through the air. Um, might have woken him up a little bit. And you have no weapons outside of Devontae Adams, so it'll be very interesting to seeing any chemistry that they might have to Devontae Adams. But I think it gets shut down. I don't see Ward giving up very much as talented as Devontae Adams is, and I think with that, all the other boys will feast. And you're just asking for a guy like Stidham. He's going to be probably holding on the ball a little too long. Probably give up some sacks just because he can't go to Devontae right off the bat.
Yeah. Listen. What was your line? Sorry, on this one.
I got plus 4.5 for the Raiders.
Oh my lord, our lines are crazy.
I don't know why. They're usually
Okay.
actually like.
Let's play a game. Guess what line I have in this game?
Like plus 8, 9.
I got the Niners minus 10.
10, yeah.
Still had the Niners. Yeah, they'll win this game easy. Running away. This is actually a good time to bring up another thing I wanted to talk about. Since you brought up Bosa. There's two players that I think desperately deserve to be in the MVP conversation. Whole league MVP. One of them is Nick Bosa. The other one is Justin Jefferson. If you were voting, Patrick Mahomes, Homer bias aside, Patrick Mahomes, Justin Jefferson, Nick Bosa, who would you pick? Or Joe Burrow. We'll throw Joe Burrow in there too, because I think he deserves to be in that conversation.
I mean, yeah. I would have to see against like historic potential numbers. Bosa's having a potential historic year right now. So
yes. So is Justin Jefferson. That's why I think they both deserve to be in that conversation. And they're really not right now.
And I feel like Justin Jefferson, I wouldn't say despite Kirk Cousins, but like it has not been he's not been blowing out of the water with everybody else sort of thing. Kind of in the same regard to that Carr. His numbers, if you took away all the Devontae Adams catches or, receptions that he has, Carr's numbers look pretty goddamn awful, but they're actually not too bad, although he's been now, cut or whatever, more or less. Almost the same thing for Kirk Cousins. Like the fall off would be great. If you don't add in all those Justin Jefferson's receptions. I would have to see what Bro and Mahomes' numbers are. I imagine Mahomes.
I can give you them if you want them.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine Mahomes is having a pretty fantastic season.
Patrick Mahomes has 4,720 yards this year, 37 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. 66.9% completion rating. Joe Burrow, 4,260 yards, 69% completion rating, 34 touchdowns, completion percentage rather. 34 touchdowns, 12 interceptions.
Okay.
Justin Jefferson has 123 receptions for 1,756 yards and 8 touchdowns. And then obviously Bosa, 17.5 sacks this year to go along with, I believe, 5 forced fumbles.
Yeah.
And an interception, right? He's got an interception too.
Yeah. I think he caught one flat. Yeah. It's always, it's just like it's so quarterback favored that it's hard to realistically not just pick Mahomes in it. But in the world where it's all kind of viewed and you're looking to the value for a team, well, I mean, even the value for a team, I mean, what would be the fall off if Patrick Mahomes wasn't out there for the Chiefs? Like the fall off.
I think
if you're talking about most valuable player, like how much value do they bring to the side?
I think if you look at it like that, I think Nick Bosa falls off the most in that
Yeah,
conversation.
because I feel like
The
there's
Niners would
enough
still
depth.
be a good team without Nick Bosa. Would they be as good? Obviously not,
No.
but they would still be a good team without Nick Bosa. I think you take the other three players away from their teams, the drop off is immense.
Yeah.
No Justin Jefferson on Minnesota, immense drop off. Obviously, you take away Burrow and Mahomes from the Chiefs and Bengals, respectively,
Yeah.
immense drop offs.
So basically, to give you an answer, like honestly, it's gonna be Mahomes.
It's going to be Mahomes.
I
But who would
like
you?
I like Jay Jeff being in the conversation there, and I think um, I think the value for him at that position is, you know, it's one of those generational ones. Like
Yeah.
maybe not quite the extent of what we've had recently, and maybe a Randy Moss or To. Close.
Give him a couple more.
Damn close though, and you can't deny that. That's what I was kind of thinking. Is that
23.
yeah, exactly.
Already
Like
at 5,000 career receiving yards.
yeah, I find it hard to as much maligned and that sort of thing. God damn, when To was fucking on in his prime,
Oh yeah,
he was so fucking scary. It was amazing that we were able to get he got dealt some unfortunate offensive and quarterbacks to where he wasn't able to, I think, put up perhaps numbers in a given season that he would have liked.
man.
Yeah, I as much as I love it and I love my Jeff Garcias and that sort of thing. It's true. It's just like there was a fall off there. I think Justin Jefferson and that squad, it would be a mistake if, as they are, they're kind of they bought themselves in on Kirk. You got to keep Jay Jefferson around, otherwise I don't think this thing works at all.
1,000,000%.
Yeah.
Without Justin Jefferson, the fall off is unreal for this team. And I actually really like Adam Thielen, right? Like as a number 2, you don't get much better than Adam Thielen. But man, without Justin Jefferson, this team is in a world of trouble. It's also why I think it was such a smart move for them to pick up TJ Hawkinson, right? Get them another person who can give them an option outside of Justin Jefferson. If I honestly had a vote, I know it's a court. I would have to vote Justin Jefferson. I really would. He's 300 or 270-ish yards away from 2,000 on the year. Could easily do that given the season he's had. He's so far and away the best receiver in the league right now. Like Tyreek Hill is very good. Devontae Adams is very good, but there's a Justin Jefferson level above everybody else. And I don't feel like Mahomes and Burrow's years have been the slam dunk MVP years to where there's no chance a wide receiver could sneak into this and win this, or a defensive end. Like if he were to set that sacks record, if he were to get to the 23 sacks he would need on the season to pass Strahan, there's no reason he can't be in that conversation. You and I both know Mahomes is going to win it. I just feel like there needs to be a little bit more love on the season Bosa and Jefferson's having, given the fact that Mahomes and Burrow's seasons have been very great, but not the exceptional level they have shown in the past.
Yeah, I can't help but agree, but that's always the thing. It's just like
it's a quarterback.
You just gotta have the realism into it. But since we're talking about, I'm gonna skip one game. We'll get back to it, but we might as well jump to it since we were talking so much about them. The Minnesota Vikings going into Green Bay to face off against the Packers. Minnesota coming at 12-3, the Packers at 7-8, and the Packers getting a -2.5 here at home. The surprise is that Packers been playing better ball as of late, winners of 3 straight. Vikings have had some very close ones after losing just a flat game against Detroit. Have been able to still rally back, get a couple wins, and yeah, only sitting at 3 losses on the year. But coming in here on the road against the Green Bay team that needs to keep winning to have any chance still at the playoffs here, being sub 500. Who do you got?
The I got the Vikings. I got the Vikings. Um, I I'm still kicking myself that I did not take Justin Jefferson #1 overall in our fantasy draft this year. I talked about it when we were picking players, and then I ended up going with Jonathan Taylor, and that is why I lost in the semifinals.
Yep.
um,
Yeah, I lost in my semifinals too in my money league.
ah,
Jonathan Taylor, sorry. Yeah.
yeah.
Jonathan Taylor draft. Yeah.
Ooh. That aside, I lost to a team, by the way, that didn't have a fucking quarterback. They started Jalen Hurts, and I still lost.
Yeah. Yeah, that's rough.
I could go on a whole rant about that. My quarterback got outscored by their defense.
Yeah. Sometimes you just run into somebody who's just getting everything. True, happens.
Um,
But this game.
and tangent aside, this game. Listen. I know Green Bay's been better recently.
Yeah.
And they're winning games. It's what they had to do. I just. Here's the thing. I honestly put all of this pick on one person, and it's Jair Alexander, and opening his big fucking mouth. Because he said the week 1 game Justin Jefferson had against the Green Bay Packers was a fluke. Why? Why give him motivation? Just shut up. Just say, yeah, he's unbelievable. We're going to have to work really hard to stop him. No. You said it was a fluke. You told him you essentially put it on his wall. You said, here, Justin Jefferson, here's the motivation for you. I think Justin Jefferson's going off in this one. And the Packers don't have anybody who can match that. Right? Like, Christian Watson has been a discovery for them, and he's been fantastic. And they've had a lot of different guys chipping in different ways, and that's all great. They've had Lazard chipping in and Dobbs chipping in, and that's all well and good. None of them can match Justin Jefferson. Not one. I could easily see Jefferson going off for $150 here and just ruining the Packers' playoff hopes.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think Jefferson has all the potential. I've been a little surprised. Just a surprising amount of, the thing, and while their offense was playing so badly, this Green Bay's defense has actually been keeping them in games, keeping them around. They're playing pretty well. They're actually 3rd against the pass as far as passing yards this year. So they've been playing the pass pretty well. Outside of, the crazy games like Justin Jefferson had and that sort of thing. I think in general been playing all right. 14 picks on the year. Just one more than Vikings have. But interesting to kind of see that their defense has had success in regards. An odd lack of Dalvin Cook that we've been seeing out of Minnesota, which no reason to think that he can't. And that's who I'm actually looking at in this game. As much as Jay Jefferson and, absolutely MVP campaign, I think he'll still have some pretty good success. I think he actually still probably gets a couple TDs in this game. I don't know if he even goes over 100 yards in this game, honestly. I see something like 6 catches, 90-something yards, and a couple tutties. They go to him when they really need him. He gets a couple maybe good catches for some yards. But other than that, I don't think it's going to be something necessarily they're going to be focusing on as much as it was in their original game plan. I see Dalvin Cook going off in this game, honestly.
Yeah,
I see Dalvin Cook somewhere around 16, 20 carries, over 100, maybe a tutty on there. You have Madison as well that you like to spell too. I expect their running game to do really well in this game, honestly. That's where the weakness is for Green Bay. I don't see a reason why you wouldn't try to exploit that. You have the offense that can do so. So that's what I'm seeing for the Vikings. I had them as well. I got them in this game. I got them by well over that 2.5.
Yeah.
You know, they're already getting spotted here. There's a reason why this team has only lost 3 games. They've had a lot of close ones. They've had a lot of one-score ones. Some people will knock them for that. Their plus minus as far as score on the year isn't spectacular. All that being said, they still win games. They'll win this one. I like Minnesota.
Yeah. I saw a good tweet by Robert Griffin. Tweeted out he tweeted out that playoff games are won usually by a single score, and the Vikings are 11-0 in single score games. That doesn't make them a bad team. It makes them a very good team, and I agree with that. Right? Yeah, just because you play close games doesn't necessarily mean it's like, oh, you got a bunch of issues. It obviously you're keeping teams close, and maybe sometimes you shouldn't be. But at the end of the day, you have that winning mentality. You got the dub. It doesn't matter how you got there. You got the dub, right? You do that in the playoffs. If they're all by 1 score in the playoffs, it doesn't matter because you'll lift a trophy, right? So I kind of lean more towards the Robert Griffin side of this argument than the other side, which is like, oh, because they won a bunch of 1-score games, they're not that good, right? I kind of lean more towards the side of like, well, no. Could they be doing more to blow teams out? Yeah, but they're winning. And that's all that matters at the end of the day. And you look at a lot of the teams that are struggling to win consistently like that shouldn't be. There's no reason to look at the Vikings as anything other than a great team. And there's no reason to look at the Packers as anything other than 7-8. Yes, they've been better recently. They're still 7-8.
Yeah. They have to deliver offense consistently, and they've done it for a few games, but that's not enough. I think there's a reason why they lost as much as they did, and they looked as bad as they did. I don't think that's gone away. So, yeah, I like Minnesota. Let's dial back to the game before that. That's happening 20 minutes before that, but we had to go in that Minnesota one because we were talking about Jay Jefferson. New York Jets going into Seattle to face off against the Seahawks. Seahawks being -1 here. They're sitting right now at 7-8, and so are the Jets. Both still kind of right there on the edge, outside looking in for the playoff hunt. It's going to take a lot of work to do it. This is the Mike White-led Jets team, though. And I believe this is kind of being it right here. Seattle is who we thought they were. We're not going to let them off the hook, though. I think, predict this is a while out weeks ago. I think Jets take this game with Mike White at the helm. And yeah, they'll get a point advantage too. So there we go. So I got the Jets in this one.
I think if Zach Wilson was starting, I'd have a very different pick. But Mike White's going. I got the Jets as well.
Let's go.
Zach Wilson starting this game. Seahawks are winning this all the way. But I like a lot of what Mike White brings to the table. I like. It's hard to tell what he is as far as like future in the NFL as a starting quarterback. Can he hold down a position for a few years? It's hard to say in that sense.
Right.
But what he shows when he plays, I think there you can do a lot worse. Right? You can absolutely do a lot worse. Guy has no fear when he goes out there. He throws the ball like he is the best quarterback in the league.
And the guys love playing for him. I think that's always something to put behind it. Like, you're going to have the defense fired up. You're going to have the offense fired up. Like, people, they love him. They love him in there. So,
he's one of those guys who I think passion for football can just not be questioned. This was a dude who could have easily made the MLB. I don't know if you know this about Mike White or not. As a high school pitcher, had a 9-2 record with a .43 ERA.
Damn, how'd they lose too? Could they not fucking put up some runs? What are you doing out here? I'm putting up a .43 ERA.
Yeah, no
I can't
kidding.
get a cup. What is that? Why am I losing 2 games?
Um, this is a guy who that was a very clear option for him if he wanted it. Loves football. Loves football. He was not nearly as highly touted as a football player as he was as a baseball player. He worked his way up in football through South Florida and Western Kentucky programs that are not the most highly touted. He did it the hard way. He got here. He's here because he wants to be here, and that infection just runs through the teams he plays for. You see it when he's on the field. Guys fucking lay out for him, right? Guys will make some of the craziest catches you'll ever see because they just want to catch the ball for the guy. You can't. That's not something you get out of Zach Wilson,
Yeah. Not now.
right?
Yeah,
No.
definitely not now. It
Um.
feels like he lost that. Any
Yeah.
chance he had of that.
Well, listen. I'll just throw it
Did
out
he
there
ever
when
have
you're
it?
when you're a fucking idiot in the media. That's probably gonna hurt. Oh, sorry. Notre Dame just ran like a 40-yard fake punt.
Glorious. Awesome.
um.
But yeah,
Yeah.
point stands. Mike White led Jets. They're still fighting out here. They got the chance to still crawl back into the playoffs, if just barely. So
If things go down the way I predicted them, where the Patriots lose to Teddy Two Gloves and they win, they're completely in control of their own destiny.
Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah. Get the dub here. Need it. And Seattle
yep.
will be fighting every bit as much as they're going to be still trying to claw their way back in. And the only way
They
to
still
do
have a
that with
shot.
the dub. So we will see. But we go on to the Battle of LA right here. We got the Rams on the road going into the LA Chargers stadium at home.
Nobody gives a shit about the Chargers.
Chargers getting -8.5 on this game. Sitting at a 9-6 record. Rams at 5-10. Yeah, this is I suppose a little bit spicier because at least we saw something out of a Baker Mayfield led Rams team. But yeah, Chargers with a big old spread here. Who you got in this one?
I'll tell you who I got. I got the upset.
Wow.
I think the Rams pull this one off.
Wow.
There's just not much to play for here for the Chargers. I think you got a very motivated Baker Mayfield looking at his future going, hey, I string a couple more of these together. I got a chance to be a starter next year in the NFL. There's going to be a team out there who's going to want me. I think he's going to keep playing hot. I think the Chargers just really don't have much to play for here. I think they're going to play super conservatively. I know Joey Bosa's off the IR. I'd be shocked if he plays much more than 20, 30 snaps. Right. Just get him on the field, get him ready for the playoffs, but don't risk anything. Same thing with some of the offensive guys. I think, somebody gets a splinter in their finger, they're going to keep them out of the game. Right. I feel like the Chargers are going to be playing a little bit safe in this one. And I think the Rams are going to clip.
I could see a world where they do play safe. The only thing, the one thing that they would be playing for, and I think it's actually an important one in my assumption or my
yeah,
is that Baltimore right now is sitting there at the 5th seed. They're the top wild card team right now. They're playing a Pittsburgh team that is still motivated to win some games here.
Yeah.
They're not going to give it to them easy. And the potential for the Chargers to be able to move up into the 5th spot, you really want to be playing Jacksonville instead of Cincinnati if you're going to that first round game.
Yeah, that's true.
You give yourself a lot bigger of a chance to win. Jacksonville, as much as they're nice darling, they're still a 7-8 division leader right now. They have not been good for most of the season. So you want to see them. So I think the Chargers do have that to play for. Now, 8.5 is a steep-ass spread. And the Rams are playing a bit better ball than they have been. Chargers have been very up and down. They are getting Joey Bosa back, apparently. He's at least practicing.
Yeah, he's off the IR.
Yes. So, likely to play this game or play significant time? Not very likely, right?
No.
But potential to maybe get out there. I don't know what their plan is for him. I don't know how much they really want to win this game. I feel like they should want to win this game. They should want to go out there and play pretty well. This is this weird, shared stadium game as well, in which I don't think most of LA realizes they have two football teams, but who knows who's going to show up? It might be half a stadium of
San Diego this week.
It might be half a stadium of Niners fans for all you know. Who the fuck knows? It's the guys that couldn't make it out to Vegas because apparently we're getting 60% of the Vegas stadium filled up. So maybe it's everybody that couldn't make that. We'll go to the Chargers-Rams game to see this shit show in the West. The Rams still suck for the most part.
They do. No, that's true.
So I got the Chargers because they still kind of have something to play for here. Yeah, that's my own reasoning. Just to feel like that they're that much better. And 8.5, it's a big spread, but I could easily see the Chargers winning by that. So just a gut feeling. And oddly enough, I will point out, that's the first game we've split on.
I was going to say, I think we've matched on everything up to this point.
So there you go. Chargers.
Yeah,
Rams.
I get what you're saying, and I do agree that they should play for positioning. And I don't get me wrong, I don't think they're not going to play for positioning. I just feel like, given all the injuries they've gone through this year, right? The second Keenan Allen takes a big hit, and maybe, that one's a little bit sore. Now get off. Come here, sit down, right? And, Bosa's going to come on the field for 10, 15 snaps, rush the quarterback a couple times, maybe get a sack feeling good, and then they sit, right?
Yeah.
I just think the Chargers have been too hardly bitten with the injury bug this year for them to feel confident going into this and not play everybody with super kid gloves.
Yeah. As we go into this next one, I'll be right back. I'm going to use the restroom real quick. But next game, and this is what we were just talking about, Pittsburgh going into Baltimore. Baltimore getting -6 here at home.
Whoa, so what is your spread differences? I got -2.5.
Oh my god. That's...
Oh my god.
I feel like we have to mix these spreads maybe. This is ridiculous. That's crazy. Because that's a completely different call. -2.5. I got -6 for Baltimore. Crazy enough. You can believe it.
-6? Okay,
yeah,
okay.
We're playing on the -6. I'll be right back. I know. Try to compose yourself. I know. That's crazy.
Okay, so hold on. So this completely changes everything. Because I had Baltimore written down at -2.5. Thinking they're going to squeak one out. Right. They got Justin Tucker. Last second field goal, win a game. Barely win it. -6? No chance. Give me Pittsburgh on that one. I like a lot of the Steelers, what the Steelers defense has been doing. They got TJ Watt back. Since they got TJ Watt back, they've been a good defense. I think the Steelers don't want Mike Tomlin to have a losing season. I think that's very much a thing. I don't get a -6 spread here. The Ravens offense rather has been useless recently. Is Lamar Jackson back? No, Lamar Jackson's still out. Why is Tyler Huntley getting -6? Who decided Tyler Huntley gets -6? I thought maybe Lamar Jackson was back, and I was like, they're really hyping up the return of Lamar Jackson. No, it's Tyler Huntley still. Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I got Pitt.
I had Baltimore written down because I had -2.5, and I was like, Baltimore probably just squeaks this one out, right? They do Baltimore things where they win this one by 3. Nope, they're not winning it by 6.
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of what was my thinking. Is probably gonna win, but Pittsburgh's still scrapping out there. They got something to play for again. We got that interesting situation where Pittsburgh gonna be trying for every bit they can, and a win here would be obviously it's pivotal. They're out if they lose, right? So, 7-9 definitely out. So yeah, it's you got that going for it. Baltimore playing for a bit, but Um, but yeah, I was surprised by that -6. Yeah, I got these MGM lines are a little suspect, I think, but we'll ride with them. We'll ride with them. We've been doing it all year, so.
Oh, it gave me a heart attack. -6.
Uh, and we'll go to the final one. Not as crazy. This is a pretty good one, and definitely game of the week. This is a great Monday night game right here. I believe
Thank
the last Monday night
God
game of the
they
week,
moved
right?
this one to Monday night.
Fantastic choice by the
It was not
NFL.
supposed to be the Monday night game. The Monday night game was supposed to be Rams and Chargers, and they were like,
Yeah,
"Fuck off out of Monday night. We're putting the Bengals and Bills
yeah.
here."
You play Sunday afternoon. Yeah, Buffalo going in Cincinnati. Cincinnati getting +1.5 at home. Cincinnati sitting at 11-4 record. Bills at a 12-3. Now, if you're wondering how this shakes out right now, Bills set. They're already their division winner, sitting at 12-3. KC also sitting at 12-3 as division winner, but ranked below them. Cincinnati guaranteed a playoff spot, not absolutely obviously set as the division winner yet, given Baltimore's record, but sitting at 11-4. So some seeding, some intrigue to be decided here. Some to play for, I believe, for both teams. Who you got in this one?
If Cincy wins this game, not only will they clinch the NFC North,
AFC.
but AFC North, my bad. But they will hold the tiebreaker of a three-way tie between themselves, KC, and Buffalo.
Yeah.
Josh Allen recently, he's got a bit of an elbow issue, apparently.
Yeah.
He has not looked great. Joe Burrow has looked exceptional. I like the Bengals to pull this one out, and I think really put themselves in a great position to swoop into that #1 seed on a Chiefs stumble somewhere. I don't see it happening because they got two of the easiest layups to end the season possible. But I really like what this Bengals team's got cooking right now.
Yeah, I love the Bengals. I got them too. Just a team that's started to look much more like what we expected. Just a bit of a stumble early on there for them, but they've looked exceptional. Burrow is having a great season at the end of it, and just some kind of stumbles, some really one-sided play from the Buffalo Bills. This is a team that they've tried to at points to some all right success, but this team really is just built around the pass. And when they can't get that going and they have to, look to a run a little bit more, it hasn't been there. I like Cincinnati's defense in general. I think they've been playing up as well. And then, they've gotten the offense to go with it. Obviously, you talk about the weapons they all have. The receiving options that Burrow has across the board. Joe Mix in the back. I like Cincinnati for sure. This is going to be a great game, obviously, and a great one there on Monday night. Great way to end the second to last week of the regular season here.
Yeah. I think it's interesting that there's still a lot of people out there that are viewing this as like, oh, this is a good litmus test for the Bengals to see if they're a legit team. They made the fucking Super Bowl last year. They're well beyond that at this point. This is one of the elite teams in the AFC. I know they started out kind of poorly, but they had a new offensive line that they were trying to gel. Their defense had a few bad injuries. Obviously, the BJ Hill injury being a massive one that it took them a while to overcome. Since this team has clicked together, since they got that offensive line playing together well, since they got all their receivers back, they've looked like, if not the best team in the AFC, among the best teams in the AFC. There's no reason to believe that they're not that team.
Yeah, at this point, exactly. And, it's not come crashing down back to earth, that sort of thing. But, the realism for teams like Buffalo and KC that look completely dominant, the realization that kind of comes there that, they run some of these good teams, they can be beat. I think that's teams have that at different points. Bengals, I think, much like the Niners, are a team that didn't play super great at the beginning of the season, but then, oh yeah, kind of cream rises to the top sort of thing, and you start to see, the amount of, around the board kind of skill that they have at so many positions, and the depth starts to emerge too. Bengals were able to get it done without Jamar Chase, what you would count as one of those marquee top receivers in the game. Losing a guy like that, and just like the same thing, you have the Niners who have been having to go without Deebo Samuel. You figure it out in some other ways, and yeah, I think the Bengals have showed that they are absolutely. They already are one of the top three in the AFC, and yeah, with a win here, yeah, being able to really control that, and to potentially steal a top seed out of nowhere. Really, I mean, yeah, that would be quite the surprise for the Bengals to be able to do that. But they have all the potential to.
Yep.
Yeah, so there we go, and that is our picks right there. Again, we only differed on one of them, the Battle of LA. I have the Chargers. Craig has the Rams. But other than that, we are picking the same across the board. So hopefully we both do well this week. That is the. Otherwise, we're both doing bad. This is basically what it comes down to. Let's see. In other news across the sports world, is there anything you want to hit on, Craig? I know we've had some spicy stuff in the bowl games realm. I know you're pretty on fire with your picks.
I'm absolutely on fire. The Pitt Sun Bowl win was not something I had. I did have UCLA in that game. That did bring my total for this season down to 20-10. It's still a pretty decent number.
Yeah, winning 2/3 right there, pretty damn good.
It's been really fun. There's been a couple absolute classic games. Arkansas and Kansas on Wednesday had an absolute fucking barn burner that went to triple overtime before Kansas decided that their quarterback, who had thrown for 554 yards and 5 touchdowns, was not the person to make the last throw of the game, but rather they should run a QB reverse and give it to their backup quarterback to throw the last throw of the game. Among the stupidest moves I've ever seen in my life. That being said, still an absolute classic game. Oregon and UNC played a great game the other day. Florida State and Oklahoma. There's been some really good games, and obviously tomorrow we got the playoffs, semifinals. TCU and Michigan, Georgia and Ohio State. I went pretty conservative with my picks on this one. I have Michigan and Georgia. I just think they're the two best teams. I think there's a reason they're the only two that went undefeated. It will be a very fun final, regardless of who wins between those teams, because there's a lot of stories that could come out here. The Michigan Ohio State rematch after Michigan handed Ohio State their ass in the final game of the season. Yeah. TCU as the ultimate underdog that could. Right? Like, this TCU team was behind in, I believe it was 10 of the 13 games they played this year. At one point or another, they were losing that game. They went 12-1. And their one loss was in overtime in the conference championship game to Kansas State. It was an absolutely unbelievable season. Then you got Ohio State, right? Who obviously got handed their ass. Listen, if I'm being honest, I wouldn't have put Ohio State in the college football playoff because I think you're devaluing the conference championships by making them not mean as much because you went there. I would have put Utah in. They won their conference championship in the Pac-12 game against USC. I know they have one more loss than Ohio State. but I think you got to value those conference championship games a little bit more than that, right? The fact that Ohio State gets their ass handed to them by Michigan, so they don't have to play an extra game, and therefore they only have one loss and make it in, instead of a Utah team that made it to their conference championship game, beat the team that would have made the playoff, by the way, if they had won their conference championship, and gets nothing for it. I don't love that, but here they are. Their story speaks for itself too. Ohio State, Michigan would be a hell of a final. But like I said, I think Georgia is just too good for Ohio State. I think Michigan ends up beating TCU. And then I think you got a fun final between Michigan and Georgia.
Yeah, nice. I think it's a, right now I feel like the playoff format, it's still, it'd be nice, like, you get some more teams involved in terms of really having a chance at a championship. I think, still some things to be hashed out with that, but it's nice. It's nice to have some sort of a bracket. Something like you got to work through a couple games to get a championship. Yeah. I think it's for the best instead of just having some of those one-offs where yeah, you have some good teams, that sort of thing, but there's always like a little bit more of a question mark. Well, now, yeah, if they can't get through their first round, then fuck them. They couldn't beat next team, so they're done. Like that's just it. Yeah. Like you decide right then and there. There's not like a loss from like early in the season that hampers the team so much that perhaps they don't have the chance. That happens if you rack up a couple losses, obviously, because there's only so many teams that get into this playoff. But at least a little something like that, a little bit of an opportunity to get a chance at the championship there. So very cool. Yeah. I definitely look forward to.
Not a big proponent of expanding the playoff. I kind of like the fact that it's the best four, right? And like I get the fact that people are like, oh yeah, but if you expand it, Utah would be in and Alabama would be in, and you have this interesting dynamic. Maybe Clemson is in or Penn State, right? And it's like, yeah, but at the end of the day, I look at the four teams in it, and then I look at Alabama in fifth. I look at Tennessee in sixth, especially a Tennessee without Hendon Hooker, and I'm like, they are noticeably worse than the four teams that are in it, right? You can even maybe argue that this year in particular, there's really only two teams that look that dominant. It's Michigan and Georgia. But I'm fine with the semifinal into the final. I like that. I don't think you want to go too much further, right? I don't think you want it to be a thing where it starts becoming we got to get the traditional schools in. Like Alabama missed the playoffs. We can't have that happening. Bigger playoffs. I like the fact that there's a top four in college football this year. It's clear as day. Nobody else was in that one-loss bracket. There you go. Yeah. Everybody else is kind of outside of it. They get to do the Sugar Bowl and the Orange Bowl, and there's still big bowl games in front of big audiences, big money for the schools. Nobody's going to be complaining about playing in a Rose Bowl game. But the top four are the top four.
Yeah, I think something to be said for a regular season. It matters that much. I suppose there's something to be said for that, and that's what you get with a tighter playoff structure. Just win your games in the regular season as they're scheduled. Yeah. And usually that'll work out. There's some times where it's been the lack of competition, even though you might have scheduled for something to go one way, all of a sudden certain teams start not performing as well. It actually hurts your chances. There's that weird kind of like trickle down effect that it has to it. But yeah,
where you beat a team who was supposed to be a good team, but now they're a shit team. So
that's a 5-8 squad. Who cares about that Minnesota? Yeah, it's like Minnesota was good last year. What are you talking about? I don't
know. We scheduled freaking we scheduled Arkansas when they were supposed to be one of the top teams in the SEC. What do you mean they're 6-6?
Yeah, exactly. No one cares about that win now. Damn it.
Yeah.
But yeah. Yeah, I think it'll be a fun, uh, you know, it's always hard to really pay attention to the college football stuff while the NFL is going on. But at this point, the NFL schedule has been moved so far down that it's the
Yeah.
perfect time for the college playoffs to be wrapping, like kind of toward the end. Is that yeah, you're getting it like right there and like wild card weekend and shit. It's great.
As an aside to those who are listening live, this South Carolina Notre Dame game is fucking going off right now.
Awesome.
Tied at 38. We got about 6 minutes left in the fourth quarter. Notre Dame driving a little bit again. It's just been ping-ponging score back and forth.
Excellent. Well, there we go. Anything else you want to hit on before we wrap it up here?
My
That's
life
the
has been
point.
consumed by college football and the World Junior Hockey Championships going on right now.
There we go. Nice.
I mentioned it last year. I don't think it's a thing anywhere other than Canada, but in Canada, the fucking World Junior Hockey Championships is like
Yeah,
maybe as big as the NHL playoffs.
it probably is. Yeah, it seems like a very more Canadian thing, but obviously these are the stars tomorrow playing today.
That's just it. And if you've watched any Canada games, Connor Bedard, who's going to be the number one overall pick this year, probably going to Anaheim because they apparently really want him. God, they're awful this year. uh, he's fucking unreal.
Awesome. Well, there we go. Got some hockey to also look forward to. Obviously, the NHL actually playing right now, NBA. But you know, we're in mid season, early season with those guys.
Yeah,
We'll
yeah.
we'll catch up as soon as NFL is wrapping up. We'll start to give you a little bit more of that stuff. But there right now, that's taking a step back to football going on right now. So there you are. But yeah, I think that's it for us today. Thank you all for stopping by. Coming back, it's been a couple weeks off, but good to be back on the calling some games here, calling some, giving some picks, and hopefully, yeah, we continue on a little bit more of a winning streak. We're both above 500 right now on the picks, so let's keep that trend going. Um, but yeah,
Finish that way.
and be sure if you are checking this out, you catch us typically Fridays on this channel right here, twitch.tv/tapatioj. That's TAPATIOJ. If you want to catch some blogs, some nice write-ups, be sure to check out. We got Craig's blog. That's at sportscliches.ca/blogs.
That is the one.
And we are there on YouTube as well. You can look up the Sports Cliches. I think it's just now YouTube.
YouTube.com/@sportscliches.
Exactly.
Why
They
they
have the
fucking
at.
put the at in there, but
It's there.
we do have the URL now.
You find us there. The VODs will be posted. We get those up usually the day after.
I've
And
been sick.
yes,
You have
exactly.
kind
Not
you
lately,
have
but
kind
we'll get them. And we've been off for a couple weeks. So yeah. Awesome. Thank you all for stopping by. I do appreciate it. Until next week, where we see what this week kind of plays out. Who's still available? Who's still trying to fight for a playoff spot? I was going to the last week of the regular season. Hope to see you then. Have a great one. Peace.